Serious business. Let's go. We're ready to pass BEC. Yeah, you know me. So, Rob, I'm going to pass it up to you. You'll pass it to Paul. Let me know when you want to turn a slide, and let's do it, baby. Here we go. Welcome aboard.
That's great. Thank you, Pete. Welcome, everybody, to our BEC, our final BEC session with Pete. We hope everybody benefited from the last ones we had, and we'll use this to get ready for your exam. The time is getting short for that because we're almost at the end of the year. So anyway, welcome everybody. I will turn it over to Paul to say a couple things about UWorld, and then we'll continue. So,
hey, happy Saturday, everybody. Good morning to you guys on the West Coast, almost noon on the East Coast. I want to just give you guys a big props showing up on Saturday, the dedication you need to be able to pass the BEC and be here. This slide here, I want to let you guys know about UWorld, just in case you guys don't know about us. We're top of the industry. We're in 8 different categories, and we're the #1 high-stake test prep provider in 6 of the 8, and we're going to be soon 8 of the 8. And I want to let you know we're educating over 2 million people to pass high stakes, and that's our big passion. That's our main focus is on high-stake test prep. And you know, one of our slogans, if not our mission statement, is to make difficult things easy to understand. So I want to let you guys know that at the end of this show, if you like what we're doing in this workshop and you want to participate and use our products, we're going to follow up at the end and let you guys know how to do that as well.
Thank you, Paul. I want to say a little bit about our team. This is only some of the team. These are the people that you will see on our new videos for the 2024 course. Pete is one of our people on the video, and we're very, very happy to have him on our side now. He joins Roger, who's been on our team for a long time, and then we have others as well, as you can see on the slide. A couple of the people on this slide are actually joining us in our call today. We have Puskar in the background, and we have Keith in the background. You can see their pictures on this slide. We also have Dave Henderson. The 3 of them are on our content team and have helped create the 2024 course, which has already gone live if you haven't seen it yet. Puskar and Dave have IT backgrounds, so sometimes there are IT questions that pop up, so send them through the question function on the software, and we'll try to answer your questions here today. And then Keith is a tax person. He's helped us work on the reg and TCP for the 2024 course. But that's our orientation for 24. But today's session obviously is on BEC, which is about 2023. So back to you, Pete, and thank you for doing this for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, guys, great to have you all here. As you know, today is all about cost, managerial, corporate finance, as well as economics. So, again, the goal is to use these questions to review the rule in its entirety. So answering the question here is actually incidental in the process, ironically. So we really want to do a thorough review on the topics that we cover. So bear with me, take notes. What you write, you will remember. I promised last time that I would be starting with task-based simulations. So I'm going to do 2 task-based simulations that you haven't seen before. Then I'm going to do a series of multiple choice you haven't seen before. And then I want to save time on the back end to do a task-based simulation that I think is very important in reviewing concepts that are not illustrated earlier in the seminar. I also want to give a big shout out to the folks at Deloitte and EY. That's right, this past week, I was in-house at both Deloitte on Monday, excuse me, EY on Wednesday. So if your firm would like me to come in, or Roger, or any member of our team, to do an in-house webinar at the topic of your choice, so it could be, we're starting to do now for the 2024 exam. So FAR. So I'm pretty much the guy for FAR. You know, the bar, I'm always at the bar. So I'm the guy for bar, but audit, we've got Roger and then the other members of the team here who are the IT experts. So if you're sitting for ISC, obviously we have tax experts on board. So yeah, we'd be excited to come into your firm. So this past week was Deloitte and EY. So welcome back, folks, if you're joining us today. But with that being said, let's jump in and let's do it. So first question we have here is going to be a little bit of degree of operating leverage, degree of financial leverage, different ways to raise your capital, debt, and equity, as you're going to see. So the first topic we have is really all about the company that wants to figure out, well, listen, how should I raise my capital? So just scanning through the questions, I always recommend before you read any of the exhibits, you kind of get a feel for big picture, like what is it that they want me to do with these facts, right? So why would we want to use long-term debt? That's one of the issues we got to look at here. Again, another question all about using, well, long-term debt when we set up our business. Hey, should we use that just-in-time philosophy? So maybe we don't want to carry surplus inventory, which is generally a non-value added activity. So more on just-in-time. What are the factors that are conducive to using just-in-time, etc.? Let's see, why would we not want to use just-in-time? So a lot of just-in-time stuff here. So you can kind of get a feel for what the topic is all about before you read any of the exhibits, because you always want to make sure you read the exhibits in context, knowing what to do with it first, okay? So that's always step number one. I call it legalized cheating, you know the deal. So they tell us here, the board of directors for this company hired your employer, Cat's Eye Consulting, various alternatives. They've drafted memos based on similar engagements for companies in unrelated industries. We're thinking about revising the document, etc. So our job is to figure out, okay, first, what is it that they want us to look at? So this first memo is about optimal capital structure. How should you raise your capital? What combination of debt and equity? So folks, one's not better than the other. There are advantages and disadvantages when it comes to using more debt versus more equity. If you use more debt and you use less equity, obviously your risk of distress goes up because you got to make those coupon payments and principal payments as they become due. They're legally required. But the advantage is with less equity, what does that do to your potential return on equity? It increases it. You're not adding partners. You're keeping control of the business. You're not adding partners. So the good news is if your business is successful, most of that return, that earnings is going to be to those particular owners. They're not diluting their earnings per share. Conversely, if you're more equity based, you have less debt, more equity. Well, obviously dividends are not legally required, not even on preferred stock. You might have a fixed dividend, but it's still got to be declared at the discretion of the board. So that completely reduces your risk of distress. That's the good news. But on the other hand, with all those partners, what does that do to your potential return on equity? It dilutes it, okay? So working capital structure, that's called your degree of financial leverage. Okay, how much debt do you want to use versus how much equity? So your degree of financial leverage. So what factors are conducive to using more debt? You need to quantify degree of operating leverage versus your degree of financial leverage. If your percentage change in EBIT, why do we use EBIT? That's the return before we've paid any interest. It looks at all your fixed operating costs, but it ignores the interest, which is a financing cost when you choose to use debt. Well, if your percentage change in EBIT is greater than your percentage change in sales, that's due to operating risk. So operating leverage looks at saying, hey, I don't want to pay you a fixed salary. No, I want to pay you commissions. If you're more commission-based, that's a variable cost, lower operating risk. If you pay more fixed salary, that's more of higher fixed costs, higher operating risk. Your degree of financial leverage, on the other hand, looks at the percentage change in earnings before tax when you have a percentage change in EBIT. So let's say your EBIT goes up by 10%, but your earnings before tax went up by 15%. That's due to financial leverage. So your degree of financial leverage would be 1.5. Let's say your change in EBIT was 10%. That was 10%, but my sales only changed by, let's say, 5%. Your degree of operating leverage would be 2. When you combine operating and financial leverage, you don't add it, you multiply it. You take your degree of operating leverage, multiply by your degree of financial leverage, that's your degree of total leverage. Leverage, folks, is an amplifier. When the news is good, it's great. If your sales go up by 5, oh, good, my EBIT went up by 10. But if your sales go down by 10, your operating profit's not going to go down by 10. It'll go down by 10 times 2, 20%. So when you look at an income statement, sales minus your variable costs, which we'll see later on, This is direct variable costing. Okay, a format that is not allowed for external financial reporting, but very useful for internal decision making. So contribution margin is what you have available to cover your fixed costs. And there's two types of fixed costs. There's your fixed operating costs, things like depreciation, rent, insurance. They do not vary with sales. They're fixed, at least in a relevant range. So your fixed operating costs, that gets you your EBIT. And then we subtract out our fixed financing cost, your interest, your fixed financing, your interest. Well, therein lies your earnings before tax. So if you want to amplify what happens to your sales by using fixed operating costs, that's your degree of operating leverage. If you want to amplify what happens to EBIT and make it even larger for your bottom line, that's financing, financial leverage, okay? So they want to know what factors in this specific set of circumstances. Now, there are certain things that might be generally true, but don't apply in these facts. We're looking specifically for things in these facts that suggest using more debt, okay? So why would you want to use more debt? Now, when you have stable sales, that's good. If you have stable sales, then you could take on more fixed costs. We're not worried about having enough sales to cover our interest and all of our other fixed costs. But if you have volatile sales, you generally want to stay away from debt. Hey, real estate, anytime you could pledge real estate as collateral, well, anytime you could secure the debt by pledging an asset as collateral, whether it's real estate or maybe your inventories or maybe your accounts receivable, that helps to reduce your cost of borrowing. You would want to use more financing in your capital structure, assuming you're willing and able to assume that level of risk. So long as your degree of operating leverage is low, that's conducive to using more financial leverage. You rarely, though, want to take a high degree of operating leverage and then compound that risk with more borrowing, financial leverage. That could put a company in a quick danger of bankruptcy. So if your degree of operating leverage is low, yeah, it's more conducive to using financing, using debt in your financing. Okay, so just a little feel for what's going on there. Then they talk about SAG facilities. I have no idea what that SAG facility is, but I do know they're talking about just in time. You want to reduce, as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to have surplus inventory. As a general rule, surplus inventory is non-value added. It's just sitting around. Maybe it's going to become obsolete, spoil. So non-value added, as a general rule, surplus inventory is not desirable. Obviously, we want to reduce having inventory that we have to store it, secure it, all that kind of stuff. So we're just in time. Hey, I'm going to order it just in time to meet my customer's demand. It's more of a pull approach. Allow the customer demand to pull that inventory through, then you'll order the raw materials to manufacture it. All righty, so a pull approach. But you got to make sure you have good coordination with your suppliers so that when your customer orders from you, you can get the materials you need right away, okay? Just in time, yeah, is more conducive to, just in time is more likely to be used when you have predictable demand, okay? So if the company knows, hey, here's my anticipated demand, well, then you know what? You know when you need to order, like it's predictable, okay? When you have predictable demand, if it's seasonal or monthly or whatever it is, you want to make sure, okay, you can order it just in time to meet your customer's need. Storage, generally, this is generally a true statement. I don't know if it applies here, but as a general rule, yeah, surplus inventory doesn't do much for me. Storage costs, you want to avoid storage costs when they're very high. So this is a true statement. Don't know if it applies here, but when you have very high storage costs, you don't want to unnecessarily store that inventory. You got to have good relationships with reliable suppliers because you are going to be ordering from them when you get the demand from your customer, okay? So while it doesn't specifically apply here, remember that EOQ model? The EOQ. Now, the only problem, I keep writing the Q, EOQ, what kind of costs do we want to balance? Well, we got to balance carrying costs carrying costs, and ordering costs. You don't want to order every single day. That'll drive that cost, unreasonably high. Okay, so we don't want to order every single day, but we probably don't want to order once a year either, because then if you order all your inventory for the year, all your needs at January 1, you're going to have huge storage costs. So we want to balance. We want to minimize the carrying and the ordering costs. So the goal is to balance, to minimize these costs. So there are trade-offs, right? So we want to minimize these costs. So the question becomes, all right, so what's the optimal order size? All right, so that's the square root of 2 sock or 2 pack, as I'm going to be using now, my friends in you world, square root of 2 pack. You ready? The square root. 2, tell me what my sales are going to be. My annual sales, my purchases. What do I need to satisfy that demand? Annual sales. You got to be able to predict that, right? And then tell me my cost per order. We're going to multiply in the numerator of this fraction, your cost per order times your annual sales times 2. And then you're going to divide that by your carrying cost per unit. Carrying cost per unit. All right. So we got our sales or our purchases to meet our sales. So I'm going to use 2 pack. All right. Purchasing, our ordering, and then our carrying costs, take the square root. All righty. Now, we also have to figure out, okay, when do we place the order? So the lead time, how long does it take for that particular supplier to deliver those goods? That's why it's so important to have reliable suppliers, okay? And we'll talk more about that in a second. Okay, they talk about the North Carolina facility. I don't know about anything about North Carolina, but a just-in-time philosophy. So folks, we don't want to use just-in-time if you have unreliable suppliers, no. You want to use it when you have reliable suppliers. Storage is a non-value added activity. For lumber, I have no idea lumber, but as a general rule, yeah, but lumber, I don't know. Highly predictable demand, yes. We want to have highly predictable demand, as I've already mentioned. So you'll get a feel for how we're setting this up, getting to see what the issues are, okay? So that's a big part of what we're doing. Okay, then they talk about working capital management. All right, working capital management. Mass production of homogeneous units. I was just with my friends this week, Deloitte and EY. Where are the other firms? Let me know if you want me to come in. Process costing, mass production of homogeneous units, you use that process costing. But when you have relatively few units, we use job order. When each unit we manufacture is relatively unique, we use job order. All righty. Ultimately, we've got to put a cost on our ending inventory, and we got to put a cost on what we sold. So there's different ways of doing it. Now, if you want the most accurate assignment of overhead to your products, you should use activity-based costing. Then we will assign our overhead to our various products very specifically, depending upon, well, what's driving the cost in that particular department, and then we'll come up with an overhead rate by department. That's different from a traditional costing system, which we'll see in multiple choice, where we're going to assign all overhead based upon a single overhead rate. With a traditional overhead system, you take your budgeted manufacturing overhead, you divide it by a single cost driver. That might be budgeted direct labor hours, or maybe budgeted machine hours, or maybe direct labor dollars. We're trying to come up with a correlation. You always choose the cost driver with the highest coefficient of determination. We want to choose a cost driver that explains the movement in the dependent variable. What's causing us to have this manufacturing overhead? You're going to come up with a rate, and then you will apply your overhead using this rate. The problem is, in a traditional system, you're assuming that every single department has the exact same cost driver, and that may not be true. All righty. Nonetheless, they say we recommend using, you got to recognize terminology. What the hell is this Delphi method? We don't use that in manufacturing. No, Delphi method, you get a panel of experts. We're trying to figure out, hey, what's GDP going to do next year? We're trying to forecast something very complex like what we think interest rates might be, or how the stock market's going to do. You get a panel of experts and we try to come up with a consensus. We don't do that with manufacturing. With manufacturing, we're either going to be using a single overhead rate, simple regression model, a simple regression model where we have a single independent variable, or maybe multiple regression if you're going to be using activity-based costing. And then when we try to predict total manufacturing overhead, we use multiple cost drivers, multiple independent variables, okay? Other factors other than direct labor, or it might be a combination. This department has a lot of labor. The correct cost driver in department 1 might be direct labor hours, but in department number 2, it might be all automated. You might say, hey, your manufacturing overhead is driven by machine hours. Then you'll use multiple regression, but we're not going to be using Delphi method or anything like that. Okay. So now we go to our facts. We've got a good feel for what it is they're asking for. So we've kind of set it up. So now we're going to apply to these specific facts. What the hell was that SAG? What was North Carolina? What was all that stuff? All right, so they tell me Abernathy Inc. is a manufacturer of fine furniture, luxury goods. You need GDP to do good, right? If GDP is up, sale of luxury goods are up. All right, but furniture is what kind of an asset? A non-current asset. It's thus durable. Durable means it generally has a life of more than 1 year. It's a non-current asset, okay? So durable goods, you're going to buy a car, you're going to buy furniture, not something you buy daily, weekly, or monthly. You buy it once and it lasts a few years, right? So a car, think of a car or furniture, something like that. But durable goods. Non-durable, think about your groceries and stuff like that. But this is durable goods. Now, those are generally big purchase items, right? The price is generally higher for your furniture, your cars, relative to your groceries and stuff you buy daily or weekly or whatever it is. All right, so we need the economy to do well. Generally, people are going to buy more furniture, more cars, more durable goods when GDP is doing good. All right, so their headquarters are in North Carolina. That's what that's all about. ABC family-owned business, 39 years. They're interested. Maintaining control, stop right there. That's conducive to using more debt or more equity. Use debt. That's a reason you want to use debt. So you're not diluting your ownership. Okay, so you don't want to issue equity. You want to issue more debt if you want to maintain control. That's going to answer question number 1, as you're going to see, and I'm just going to list it out for you. All right, they tell me wood furniture is manufactured. There's North Carolina again. The wood, I remember lumber in one of the things I read. And then there's steel, furniture and furniture components in Michigan. So steel, we got aluminum, furniture and furniture components in Oregon, and then we have glass. There's your SAG acronym. Okay, Abernathy owns these facilities, so there's great flexibility on changes it wants to make to them. When you own those facilities, if you own all these facilities, you own a lot of PP&E. So what's going to be a significant expense? Depreciation expense is going to be higher. That means you're going to have a higher degree of operating leverage. All right, so you're going to have a higher degree of operating leverage. So that's going to be part of question number 2. When you're a manufacturer and your fixed operating costs are higher, you already have rent or depreciation, you generally don't want to compound a high degree of operating leverage with a high degree of financial leverage. So this would be conducive to using less debt, more equity. All right, so here you would want to use equity. That would be a reason to use more equity and less debt. Okay, wood furniture is not always readily available. Stop right there. Wood is not always readily available. So you might have reliable suppliers, but wood, lumber is just not, can't make a phone call and get it. It looks like you got to cut some trees down first. So that might be a reason to do what? Carry more inventory. When your raw material is difficult to come by, that might be a reason for the wood, for the lumber, keep your inventory levels higher. You could not use just-in-time inventory. All right. In addition, pieces of wood have to be maintained at a stable level of humidity before we manufacture those pieces of furniture, whatever it is. So you can't just get it the same day and then use it. It's got to be at a stable. So all of that is conducive to keeping your inventory levels higher. So for lumber, we're thinking this is an exception to the general rule where inventory is actually a value-added activity. An exception. That's why we don't use always. As a general rule, inventory is non-value-added, but here it's value-added. Okay, and I believe we're going to see that in question number 5, just to reference back and forth. Okay, so North Carolina has to carry higher amounts of inventory. That's right. Unlike steel, aluminum, and glass, okay, The significant investment in PP&E as well as inventory means that we know that they have a high degree of operating. Anytime you have a high degree of operating leverage, you know your percentage change in EBIT is going to be greater than your percentage change in sales. So you already have a high degree of operating leverage. We know we don't want to compound that with a high degree of financial leverage. So that's evidence to use more equity, less debt. All right, so we'll see that again. That's part of that question number 2 again. Okay, the SAG facilities, not the wood, but the steel, aluminum, and glass, they have reliable suppliers. Go ahead and use just in time. Generally short lead times. Go ahead and order more just in time. As the Michigan and Oregon facilities are in a fairly metropolitan area, the cost to purchase and ship in raw materials is low, but storage costs are relatively higher than the relatively inexpensive North Carolina. So when your storage costs are lower, that's conducive to what? Higher inventory levels. And that's what we're going to do for the lumber again, but not for the steel, aluminum, and glass. Okay? Storage costs are higher. So when you have higher storage costs, and this will tie to question number 6, when your storage costs are higher, then what do we want to use? Just in time. We want to use EOQ. Okay? So when your storage costs are higher, we want to use for the SAG just in time, but for the lumber, storage costs lower, go ahead and use or have higher inventory levels. Okay, so we got to be careful. Are they talking about the steel, aluminum, and glass, or are they talking about the lumber? So we'll see that again in question number 6. All right, so and just in time is going to work for the SAG. So Abernathy has 3 product lines. They've got classic, modern, and bespoke. The classic and modern lines are built for mass customization. So mass customization. Let's see, the bespoke is entirely custom. So that's 100% custom, typically using original design. So that every unit is unique. You're probably going to use for that more job order costing. And then the mass production, you know, it's their own model, but it's mass production, maybe process costing if you're mass producing it and all those units are the same. It's custom that they do it, but it's mass produced. Okay, demand for classic is relatively constant. Okay, so the demand for classic is relatively constant. So when you can predict your demand, annual sales, EOQ. Okay, so just in time, EOQ, when you can forecast your sales, it's relatively constant. Okay, go ahead and use EOQ just in time. Demand for modern is erratic and moderately difficult to project. Demand for bespoke is highly erratic. So for those models, for the bespoke and the, let's see, so the demand for modern and bespoke, when you have erratic demand, it's more volatile. That makes it difficult to use that just in time, that EOQ. So for the bespoke and the modern, I don't think we're going to want to use that just in time, that EOQ. More difficult to do because we can't forecast our sales. Okay, they tell us mass customization lines, components are made in job lots but not assembled. Furniture is ordered by the customers, then it's finished using those pre-made components. So we've got pre-made components, we've got specified finish, we've got upholstery. We have multiple cost drivers. Multiple cost drivers. So the cost of every unit is dependent upon, number one, the mass production, I guess, of the base unit, but then the customer gets to pick the finish and the upholstery. So if you're trying to forecast cost, you're probably going to use some kind of multiple regression model. The cost will be dictated by exactly what that customer's all ordered. Okay, we believe that the overall economy is entering recession, not good. When you sell furniture, a durable good, if GDP is down, we would anticipate demand is going to be down. When GDP is down, income is down. There's 2 ways to measure economic activity. In macroeconomics, there's an expenditure approach, GDP, which equals GDI, the income approach. So if GDP is down, income is down, demand's going to be down. It's going to shift left, not good. So demand, anytime demand is down, that will shift left. More to come on that in a second. So that's not good. They tell us, let's see, many competitors have filed for bankruptcy, so not a good thing. So when your sales are tied to GDP, what do we call that type of good? When your sales are dependent upon the performance, sales is the dependent variable, you're regressing that against GDP, simple regression, we call those sales cyclical. That's very different from pharmaceutical goods, right? Insulin, anything you need to survive, blood pressure, we don't care how the economy is doing. The sales for pharmaceutical, for drugs, is independent of GDP. But for cars and for furniture, those sorts of things, you need the economy to do well so people have the income to consume those durable goods. All right, they tell us consumers' environmental and health concerns threaten future profitability, as does, folks, when you have a high tax rate, that's conducive to using what? More debt. What is your cost of debt? Your cost of debt is that company's yield to maturity, also known as the market rate. What's a major advantage of borrowing money? The government subsidizes the cost of borrowing, the interest tax shield. Because the government allows a tax deduction for interest, like depreciation, that reduces your taxable income, reduces your taxes paid, which amplifies your after-tax cash flow. So this is definitely an incentive to use more debt. The yield to maturity times 1 minus the tax rate. The higher the tax rate, the lower the after-tax cost of debt. So that is definitely an incentive to use more debt when you're in a high tax bracket. Incentive to use more debt in this case. Okay, they tell us with declining trends in the economy as a whole, so the economy again entering a recession, they place new covenants on your renewed line of credit. Our conservative approach in the past and relative stability in the furniture industry gives us favorable, your cost of borrowing is heavily dependent upon your credit rating. So if historically you're relatively conservative, you try to keep your operating costs lower, you try to keep your interest lower, well, then that'll keep your cost of capital overall lower than it would be otherwise because they're relatively conservative, okay? Now, they tell us this is fortunate because the stock market is experiencing low investor confidence. So when people are not feeling confident, what does that do to the cost of capital, specifically the stock market, the cost of equity? Your required rate of return is the real risk-free rate, pure time value of money, plus expected inflation, loss of purchasing power, plus risk premiums that are dependent upon our level globally, our level of risk aversion. So in the US stock market, if we're not feeling confident, we're going to demand a higher premium for assuming risk. If you want me to buy stock, then that cost of equity, I'm going to demand a higher rate of return. And if the stockholder demands a higher rate of return, then that means the company's cost of equity is going to go up. All righty. Now they tell us we're looking to maintain profitability, blah, 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 working capital management policies. We use a 365-day year. We're thinking about 3 product changes. I didn't sing a single question that talks about incremental revenue versus incremental costs. When you're thinking about making changes to a product, you will do it so long as the incremental revenue is greater than the incremental relevant cost. The last question I do today, that last task-based simulation, will focus in on that. What are your relevant costs? Variable costs are relevant, and controllable fixed costs. But they got to tell you it's controllable, and any opportunity costs. If there are opportunity costs, there are not always, but if there are opportunity costs when you do decision making, you want to consider those costs as well. So we will review this in greater detail later. Okay, variable costs are relevant, controllable fixed costs are relevant, and opportunity costs. All this is distractor information, has no bearing on the solution. There's not a single thing in there about making product changes. All right, so now answering these specific questions. Question number 1, Abernathy has several factors that are conducive to using long-term debt rather than using equity. What was specifically mentioned in this question? Certainly this is true. You need to have stable sales, but specifically the best answer What did management specifically say they want to do? Maintain control. So in that drop-down menu, there are various options to consider when it comes to choosing a choice for this particular question. And I've included those here for you. Actually, my buddy Rob was nice enough to do that. So what are the factors conducive to using more debt? So we give you like these drop downs, okay, what all the answer choices are, but I want to cover as much as I can, so bear with me. Applying it to these facts, what I wanted to teach you from this question, while stable sales overall is true, okay, yeah, we need stable sales, that doesn't apply here. Remember, here, sales are cyclical. All righty, sales are cyclical. Why? Because they're tied to what? GDP, dependent upon economic performance. So furniture, which is the subject matter here, a durable good, we need the economy to do well. All righty, so overall, yeah, while it's true you need stable sales, applying it to these facts, why did we say we want to use equity financing? Because they want to maintain control. So that was one of the factors specifically that applied to these facts that's conducive to using more debt. So specifically, this question wants to know, what are the factors conducive to using more debt? You want to maintain control, okay? Stable sales, folks, look for a set of facts where it's relatively inexpensive, okay? Relatively inexpensive or pharmaceutical, or anything to do with healthcare. Those non-durable, they tend to be less cyclical, okay? So your durable goods, more cyclical, think of your cars, your furniture. The non-durable, relatively inexpensive, okay, your grocery bill, whatever. I know highly inflationary, different story, but whether or not you buy soap is not heavily dependent upon, I hope, how the economy is doing, all right? You might be sweating more, you need to buy it. So pharmaceutical, healthcare, your sales tend to be more stable in those types of economies. Okay, what was another factor that specifically applied here conducive to using more debt? The high tax rate. Folks, you got to remember, the cost of debt is the cheapest source of capital. That's less than the cost of preferred equity. The most expensive is the cost of common equity. Why is debt so cheap? For two reasons. Number one, they assume the least amount of risk. Assume least in the event of a bankruptcy, which we saw here, companies going bankrupt, creditors get their money back before stockholders. If you assume less risk, your required rate of return is lower, and it's tax deductible. The government subsidizes that cost of debt. Dividends are not tax deductible. Interest is tax deductible. So two reasons why debt is so cheap. How do you get your cost of preferred equity? You take that fixed dividend, you divide it by the price in the market for that preferred equity. The dividend is fixed, okay, with preferred equity generally, assume it's non-participating. So with a fixed dividend, the dividend is not tax deductible, so it's more expensive than debt, but it's less expensive than common equity because preferred equity, you get your money back before common stockholders. And now there's three ways to get your cost of common equity. Forecasted dividend divided by the price in the market plus the company's growth rate. Forecasted dividend, today's dividend subscript 0 times 1 plus growth, or forecasted earnings per share times the company's payout rate. Or you can use a buildup approach, which I showed you earlier. The buildup, that real risk-free, pure time value of money, supply and demand for loanable funds, monetary policy, plus expected inflation, not current, your loss of purchasing power plus risk premiums, dependent upon our level of risk aversion, or what they call the capital asset pricing model, a simple regression model where we try to come up with the required rate of return on common equity. We start with the nominal risk-free rate as our y-intercept. The nominal risk-free rate is your expected inflation plus that real risk-free, those two together, plus your expected return on the market over that risk-free rate. That is called the market risk premium. That gets multiplied by this company's beta coefficient. That's your single independent variable. If a company has a beta of 1, they're just as volatile as the market. Greater than 1, greater volatility. If their beta is less than 1, less volatile. Okay, but common equity is the most expensive source of capital because in the event of a bankruptcy, you get your money back last, and dividends are not tax deductible. Okay, here with the high tax rate, that's an incentive to use debt. Anytime you're in a high tax rate, the depreciation times that tax rate, that's going to save you money. The dollar value of the depreciation tax shield, your interest expense times that high tax rate, that'll save you money when you do your tax return. Those tax deductions become very valuable when you're in a high tax bracket. You want to take advantage of those tax deductions. They're called tax shields, okay? Now, when you have a high degree of operating leverage, you want to offset that with a low degree of financial leverage. So what's not conducive to using more debt is when you have a high degree of operating leverage, but that's not what they asked here. Here they wanted to know a factor conducive to using more debt, high tax rate. But you got to look at this holistically when you make your decisions. You've also got to look at, well, if you use more debt, then you have a higher degree of financial leverage. That is an argument against using more debt, right? So it's all answering the question that was asked. Okay, the next one. They want to know attributes that support using just in time. So which facility did we want to use just in time? The SAG facilities. We want to use just in time to manage the raw material because the inventory is non-value added, right? It's non-value added and it's expensive to carry more inventory for the SAG, for the steel, the aluminum, and the glass. All righty. Now, the original text was highly predictable demand. That does not apply here. This was a wrong answer choice. That's not applicable in these facts because the sales are erratic for SAG. While overall it's true, you like to have highly predictable demand, that did not apply in this set of facts because the sales for the SAG products, erratic, not predictable. So the sales for the SAG products, they talked about being erratic or highly erratic, not predictable. So that was not the answer in this case. But in this case, what did they specifically say? Lead times were short and they have high storage costs. That's what specifically applies to these facts, attributes that support just in time. When you have high storage costs and you've got short lead times, go ahead and use that EOQ. Remember, when you manage inventory, if you have too little, if your inventory balance is too low, well, then you're going to have lost sales. And that'll make your profits go down. But if your inventory levels are too high, your carrying costs are going to be unnecessarily high, and that'll reduce your profit. So we want to balance it out. We want to have the right amount. So that's where we use the square root of that 2 pot. Your purchases, your ordering costs, your carrying costs. All righty. Now, once you know the correct amount to order, right, this gets us the amount to order to balance our ordering costs and our carrying costs. You also have to remember on the exam, reorder point. When do we place that call? Well, first of all, you don't want to wait too long. You always want to start with safety stock, a cushion. You don't want to fall below a certain level that now you're sweating it out waiting for the truck to arrive. So you always want a cushion. Add that first. And then we add to that, well, the lead time, how predictable. We like short lead times. Lead time times the sales during the lead time, during that lead time. This will tell you when to place the call to reorder. EOQ tells you the amount to order. Reorder point tells you when to place the call to order the amount that's dictated by EOQ. Just make sure, folks, your lead time and your sales during the lead time are consistent. They both have to be days or they both have to be in weeks. All right, you need consistency there. All right, deep dive. You see, this is the thing with the task-based simulation, super deep dive. All right, here they want to know attributes again that support using just in time. Attributes that support using just in time. The original text was, hey, storage is a non-value added for these raw materials. That is true for the, not SGA, I'm always thinking selling general and administrative. That was true for SAG. They specifically said for steel, aluminum, and glass, that is true. It's non-value added. Remember though, the lumber was an exception to that. All right, we need that humidity level, and it's difficult to get the lumber when you need it. So for lumber, we want to have higher inventory. All right, but for the SAG, no problem. All right, so the attributes that support using just in time for SAG, non-value added activity, and the storage costs, moderate or relatively high for the SAG. I was going to write gas. I'm losing my mind. All right, SAG. All right, so relatively high. Remember, for the lumber, the storage costs in North Carolina, those costs were lower, so we're not worried about having higher inventory levels there. Okay, so let's see. Storage rarely is about, rarely, it could be, but it rarely is. General rule, it's not. Okay, so for the SAG, we want to go ahead and we want to carry less inventory. We want to use just in time. We want to use EOQ, all that kind of good stuff. All right, the next question, attributes that support carrying a higher amount of inventory, but now they were talking about the lumber. Okay, it's not about unreliable suppliers. That's not the reason to carry more inventory. Now, while that's a true statement generally, when you have unreliable suppliers, yeah, you want to carry more inventory. But that does not apply in this case. That's not the issue. Lumber is just difficult to come by, number one, and we need the humidity. So value added, lumber is an exception to the general rule. The lumber is the exception. That is value added, okay, because we need that humidity level, and the carrying costs are relatively lower. Wood's not readily available, the carrying costs are lower. So storage is a value-added activity for the lumber. That was the correct choice there, okay? So again, although a statement might generally be true, what applies in these facts? Okay, talking about the storage costs. So again, attributes supporting higher inventory levels, again, for the lumber. The storage costs for the lumber were low. In North Carolina, the storage costs were lower. That supports having higher inventory levels, okay? You don't need that just in time. Unreliable suppliers, sure, generally you would want to carry higher inventory levels, but that does not apply here. Storage is non-value added for lumber? No, it's not. Storage is value added for the lumber, okay? Highly predictable demand, that was not the reason that we're looking for when it comes to storing more lumber. It has nothing to do with the predictability of demand. Okay, and by the way, demand here is generally not so predictable. It's cyclical. It's depending upon GDP, which doesn't really support just in time. Okay, so it has nothing to do with highly predictable. Specifically here, they mentioned the storage costs were low in North Carolina, makes it more conducive to using having higher inventory levels. Okay, we recommend using multiple regression to identify key cost drivers, okay? So when do you want to use multiple regression? Not in a traditional costing system where overhead is applied using a single overhead rate. You generally want to use multiple regression, activity-based costing, when there are multiple cost drivers, okay, for your manufacturing overhead. You would want to use multiple regression. What's another situation that applied specifically here? When you have multiple materials that dictate cost of goods manufactured. We're so used to having one type of raw material, right? Remember that formula? You got your beginning work in process, plus your raw materials used, plus your direct labor, plus your overhead applied. That gets you your overall manufacturing costs. You subtract your ending work in process. There's your cost of all goods manufactured. These three are your current manufacturing costs, not to be confused with cost of goods manufactured. Your current manufacturing costs only equals your cost of goods manufactured when beginning and ending work in process is 0. We're also very used to having only one raw material. That's not always the case. Your cost for raw materials could be driven by the cost of various materials, more than one, and a different volume for each one. So your cost of raw materials, you might want to use multiple regression. You have multiple raw materials, and the volume for each one might be different. You might use 2 of this part, 5 of that part, 12 of that part. Okay, multiple regression. All righty. We're not using, as we mentioned, that Delphi method. Delphi method doesn't apply here. Delphi method, you're trying to predict what? The performance of the economy. All right. Here, we're determining cost drivers. We're selling furniture, and even the mass production line is only mass production up to a point, because then the consumers get to determine what? The finish and the upholstery. So there's 2 lines. We have one line that's 100% custom made, and then the other line that's mass production up to a certain point, and then people get to choose the finish and the upholstery. You got to use multiple regression there, okay? So not the Delphi method. Okay, and then lastly, again, the method, so this question is, well, what is multiple regression? What's the definition of multiple regression? Multiple regression, we have one dependent variable, but we have more than one. We have multiple cost drivers, multiple independent variables. So multiple raw materials, or maybe multiple cost drivers for manufacturing overhead, activity-based costing. Okay, but that's multiple regression, okay? So it has nothing to do, probability theory and the Delphi method, all that stuff is trying to predict with a high degree of uncertainty, what's GDP going to do next year, or in 3 years, or in 5 years. Okay, you're trying to look at economic conditions and you're trying to predict where's GDP going to be. When you do your regression model, or when you do GDP, remember, GDP is your income level. One's an expenditure approach, one's an income approach. But your x-axis is GDP, or economic output, employment, volume levels, output, okay? So folks, you've got your short run aggregate supply, you've got your aggregate demand. As prices go up, supply goes up, quantity supplied goes up. They're directly related, positively sloped. When prices go up, quantity demanded goes down, inversely related, okay? And this creates your equilibrium point for price, all righty? So we'll see more of that when we get to some individual multiple choice. Okay, this task-based simulation I did last time, so if you're interested in the ratios, I did that the last one. What I did not get to do last time, what I want to do today is this second task-based simulation, and then I will do multiple choice, and then on the back end, another task-based simulation. But this is why, guys, I recommend when you study for any part of the exam, you always start with multiple choice. You can cover a lot of ground, get comfortable with the concepts, then the highest level of application is task-based simulation. The reason you don't study task-based simulations first, it's too deep of a dive. You know, now you're looking at one little piece of the puzzle, but you're going so far down, right? So you always want to do the multiple choice first, then the task-based simulations. Okay, but same thing, legalized cheating. Before I read the facts, I want to get a feel for what this topic is all about. Hey, credit card debt held by U.S. consumers. We have a lot of debt that increased. When we have more credit, when we have more debt overall, what would you anticipate spending to be in the future? We would probably think, and this is an economics question, obviously, economics. But folks, when you already have high debt levels, what would you anticipate demand to be in the future? You would think at some point, you know, you want to pay down your debt, spend less and pay down your debt, right? So just general rule of thumb there. Okay, the national average duration of employment, is that good news or bad news? Folks, when employment goes up, income levels go up, GDI goes up, GDP goes up, aggregate demand will go up. It'll shift right, okay? So what does that mean? If this is your short run aggregate supply, and this is your aggregate demand, and our x-axis measures GDP, employment, output, this was our level of activity. That was our price level, overall price level, and GDP. If aggregate demand shifts to the right, don't memorize, think what's happening. Well, anytime we shift right, GDP is going in what direction? Up. Employment's going up. What's that doing to price levels, though? Price levels are going in what direction? Up. All right, so you don't want to gloss over that. You want to set it up. Okay, they tell us the national average duration, the term of employment increased. Again, GDP up, income levels up. That's likely to push aggregate demand up, shift right. We could buy more. That's good news for the economy. Nationwide, there's a 10% increase in residential building permits. That's an expansionary sign. The economy is growing. GDP is up, same thing, all good stuff there, okay? So that'll increase the supply of housing. If we look at microeconomics, the supply of housing is up. Anytime the supply of housing goes up, you would think at some point the price will go in the opposite direction at some point. But the forces of supply and demand dictate the price, okay? Once we have the price set, then you could talk to me about, okay, the quantity demanded at that price, the quantity supplied at that price. Okay. Let's see, a competitor in the retail. So we have a competitor in the retail auto market, responsible for 9% of revenues, is undergoing liquidation. They're going out of business, folks. Anytime competition goes down, what's that likely to do to your profit margins? Inversely related, they're going to go up. Okay, we got a cable TV show. I don't know what the hell's going on there. All right, so you get a feel. So we're reading through the facts. Okay, we want to see, we're reading through the question stem, getting a feel for the subject matter. We know it's economics, some macro, some micro. Let's see what we got now specifically in this case. The firm of Cut, Paste, and Assemble is auditing Durable, an auto parts manufacturer. So, auto manufacturer, durable goods. We don't buy cars every day or every week. Durable goods, as a general rule of thumb, as GDP goes up, sales go up. Cyclical. Right? So absent any other information, this appears to be cyclical. We need the economy to do well. All right. Anytime you're a manufacturer, you think fixed costs tend to be, not always, but fixed costs tend to be what? Higher. You're either going to have to rent your factory or you own it. You'll have to depreciate it. Anytime you're dealing with a service industry, you guys, CPAs, lawyers, whatever, financial advisors, more variable costs. Your degree of operating leverage tends to be lower. They can simply hire more when they need it, fire more when they don't need the help. Okay, so service industries tend to be less cyclical, all right? Less volatile, okay? Your percentage change in sales times your degree of operating leverage, that's how you forecast your percentage change in EBIT. Degree of operating leverage is an amplifier. If the news is good, sales go up, then you want a high degree of operating leverage. But if the news is bad, sales go down, then you're hoping you have a low degree of operating leverage. But it doesn't work that way. Manufacturing, you tend to have higher degrees of operating leverage. Service industries, you tend to have lower degrees of operating leverage. All righty. They tell us we produce 3 product lines. Contract parts, don't know what that is. High performance, that sounds like a luxury good. And then bargain parts, that sounds like inferior goods. Why is that important? Percentage change in demand relative to percentage change in income. With normal goods or luxury goods, your independent variable, as income goes up, demand tends to go up, positive slope. But percentage change in demand, when you look at that relative to percentage change in income for inferior goods, as a general rule of thumb, those are inversely related. You'll probably sell cheaper stuff, cheaper wine, cheaper parts, cheaper cars when the economy is doing poorly. All right, so they've kind of got diversification going on here with the different product lines. If the economy booms, they'll sell more of the luxury stuff. If the economy is doing poorly, they'll sell more of the inferior. So they got a little hedge going on there to reduce volatility, okay, reduce volatility. All right, so now let's see what we got here. So here we've got the drop-down menu. Okay, all the different things. So again, this is where I was cheating before, reading ahead. Let me just now go to the facts, read them in context. Remember, something might generally be true, but does it apply to these facts? Now I'm going to read the facts in context. So they tell me Durable is an auto parts manufacturer. So we know we got durable goods, non-current, lasts more than a year, GDP is up, sales will be up, tends to be more cyclical in nature. Okay, this is going to apply to question number 3, as you're going to see. They tell us they got many experienced employees. They have 3 product lines: the contract parts, the high performance, and the bargain. So they're somewhat diversified. So for the luxury goods, there tends to be a direct relationship. GDP up, the demand for these products will be up, directly related. We're going to see that, folks, in question number 2. We'll specifically address that. The bargain parts inferior. As GDP goes down, the sales of these goods go up. We're cyclical, but we're not directly related. We're inversely related. Our performance is heavily dependent upon GDP, but unlike luxury goods where the relationship is positive, we're highly correlated, but the relationship is inverse. This is called, folks, your correlation coefficient that has a range between -1 and +1. Okay, with the luxury goods, the relationship between GDP and the sales is positively correlated. We have a high correlation with the inferior goods, but it's not positively related, it's inversely related. It's just like you guys, probability of passing, let's regress that against something that it's inversely related to. What's probability of passing inversely related to? Happiness. The more happy you are, you're probably going to fail because you haven't been studying enough. If you're miserable and all you ever do is study, then you know what? Your probability of passing becomes what? Very high. So you could have a relationship. It just is not always positive. It could be negative. All right. What's this contract stuff all about? We supply parts for the product lines and dealerships. Durable competes with in-house shops and independent contractors for these contracts. Basically, folks, we're a price taker. You know what that means? Monopolistic competition. Lots of small suppliers producing almost the exact same thing. So monopolistic competition. All right, that's what they're telling you there. The contract product line is made up of parts patented by the automobile manufacturers. We make these products. So the automobile manufacturers, the more cars they sell, the more of these parts we're going to need. So the sale of autos is heavily dependent upon GDP. GDP is up, sale of autos is up, sale of the contract parts is going to go up. These are complementary, right? Complementary, like peanut butter and jelly. It's good for jelly if people eat more peanut butter. It's good for this company if they sell more of the finished product that needs our raw material. Okay, so directly related complementary goods. All right, so we make those to manufacturer specifications, guarantee the parts, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, let's see. They tell us Durable also supplies parts to which holds patents to distributors for independent garages to install and retailers to sell to consumers in their own vehicle. Durable has a high performance line, so the luxury goods, we've been through that, and the bargain line, the inferior. In the retail market, let's see, we've got more influence on these prices. Okay, so probably, you know, monopolistic competition, maybe an oligopoly, I don't know. The high performance parts are guaranteed, blah, blah, blah. The bargain parts shorter. The margins on the retail, so the margins on the retail market sales are higher than the sales of the contract product line. So with the contract product line, the profit margins are lower because we got the monopolistic competition. So for the retail, the profit margins tend to be higher. So that would mean maybe it's a little bit more differentiated. We could justify, maybe we're a price seeker. Remember all that stuff? That's what's got to be coming to mind. All right, there are few sellers in the retail auto parts. What does that tell us? Oligopoly. So there you go. We're a price seeker, you're generally going to have higher profit margins. Okay, let's see. Durable. The Michigan plant concentrates on steel parts, Tennessee, fiber, Durable, Utah, rubber, whatever. The vast majority of the sales, U.S. So the economy that we want to predict, top-down approach, folks. When you do a top-down approach, when you forecast sales, you start with GDP. How's that going to affect this market? How's the market going to affect this industry? How's that going to affect this target company within that industry? So the target company's performance is heavily dependent upon the industry performance, dependent upon market performance, and the market is dependent upon GDP. All righty, so the only market that's relevant, the only economy is US. All right, this is gonna, exhibit 2 is gonna help us answer question number 5. We got a TV show. What's that all about? For the non-mechanically inclined, that would be me. All right, and they're trying to say, hey, the people are watching this show, the do-it-yourselfers. The show illustrates simple maintenance and enhancement tasks and encourages novices to work on their vehicles. So that should increase, you would think that should increase, not the contract, but the retail sales. And then I don't know, are you going to be buying the expensive high end, or you're going to be buying the cheap stuff? I don't know. It depends what kind of car you got. All right. So if you got the Corvette like Rob, you'll be doing the high end. You got a Ford Pinto like me, you'll be buying the cheap parts. All right. What else do we got? This relates to questions 6 and 7, as you're going to see. Durable is planning to do an acquisition. Why? Why are you buying somebody else? What is the reason? Well, Flexible was founded 6 years ago by scientists to take advantage of high performance aspects of silicone. I don't remember silicone being used anywhere. They make silicone for plumbing. We don't do plumbing. Washing machines, we don't do that. Heat lamps, why would they want to buy this company? Diversification. So they're right now auto parts. Now they're coming into a new product lines, washing machines, all this other stuff that they can service, okay? So that diversifies away unsystematic risk. The unsystematic, the non-market risk. You can use diversification to reduce the standard deviation in your sales, the volatility in your sales. That is a way to reduce sales volatility. So by being more diversified, if people aren't buying cars, I don't know, washing machines and whatever else, heat pumps and all that stuff, okay, totally different product. Hopefully we can stabilize our sales. Remember, market risk is non-diversifiable, all right? So the general conditions in the economy, GDP, inflation, interest rates, employment, all that kind of stuff, all of that cannot be diversified away. You can hedge it by selling the market short, but you can't diversify it away. If you're going to sell goods and services in this market, you're subject to market risk. That is non-diversifiable risk. Doesn't mean you can't manage the risk, though. You could always sell the market short. So if the market does poorly, you could profit in those conditions, okay? But you can't diversify it away. All right, let's see. Durable plans to retain Flexible's existing product lines. Okay, so they're going to diversify and use their expertise in developing silicone auto parts. So they're doing this for the technology that they don't currently have. They have all different types of parts, but none of those was silicone. All right, so the automobile, all right, so they're doing it for technology and diversification, blah, 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 blah. That's the reason they're doing it. All right, another exhibit. Reliable, responsible for 9% of retail auto parts. Revenues is undergoing liquidation. So that was one of the competitors. We saw that. Okay, so in the retail market, okay, we have a competitor that's going out of business. As the competition goes down, profit margins go in what direction? Up. All right, profit margins are heavily dependent upon competition. That's why in ratios, net income divided by sales times your sales divided by your average assets. When you analyze return on assets, we want to know what's driving multiple regression return on assets. So management efficiency, the right amount of assets. So your asset turnover is heavily dependent upon management having the right amount of inventory, the right amount of factories, the right amount of stores. You don't want to have too few, you don't want to have too many. Profit margin, on the other hand, is less controllable. That's more dependent upon what? Competition. And as competition goes down, it's related, okay, but inversely, lower competition, higher profit margins. They're related, albeit inversely. There's a high correlation coefficient, but not being positive, being negative. All right, and now let's apply that. And by the way, that would answer, exhibit 4 is going to answer, I believe, question number 4. Okay. So a lot of econ. Now let's apply it to these facts. Here we go. All right. So, yeah, and let me get you the whole drop down thing. So question by question, so you can see all the choices here. You got to pre-phrase your answer, folks. You can't rush to the choices. Think. Average credit card debt held by consumers increased by 4%. So we would forecast that going forward, aggregate demand is going to go down. All right. So the more debt we have, future spending we would anticipate would be lower when you have all this debt. Now, the federal government in the US doesn't seem to get that point. Despite our ridiculous deficit, they spend because they're spending our money. All right, so aggregate demand is going to do what? Shift left. Here's your short run aggregate supply. Here's your aggregate demand. That'll affect your GDP, your real GDP, not affected by inflation. I'm not impressed if your GDP goes up due to higher prices. I'm impressed when GDP goes up due to higher output. So we're looking for real GDP, not nominal. Real GDP, output, employment, income. Okay, that's all along this axis. X-axis, and there's your price level. Okay, so we're anticipating aggregate demand is going to shift to the right. So higher real GDP output and all that's going to go up. The only disadvantage is what's going to happen to price levels now. Anytime demand goes up, prices are going up with it. All right, so this will probably have no effect on the economy as whole. Absolutely not. It will have an effect. It will have an effect. Okay, what kind of effect is that going to have? Contracting effect. GDP is likely to go down and will have no effect on durables bargain product line sales. No, incorrect. When GDP goes down, sale of bargain inferior goods is going to go in what direction? Up. So I'm looking for something that has a contracting effect on the economy, and we're going to have an increase in those bargain product lines. All right. But notice, you got to forecast your answer first. You can have too many freaking choices here for you to be haggling through. You got to think, so you're looking for your choice. You don't allow the choices because then you'll be spinning your wheels. You pre-phrase an answer, then you find that. GDP down, another way of saying that is the economy is contracting. When GDP is up, we say the economy is what? Expanding. Okay, so that's the proper terminology. But the sale of the inferior goods we know is going to go up. Okay, question number 2. The national average duration of employment has increased. So again, all these facts are separate from anything else. Employment is going up. So short run aggregate supply, your aggregate demand. Aggregate demand, now they're telling us it shifted right. So what do we know? Real GDP. Obviously, employment, they've already told us is up. So that means real GDP is up. GDI, income levels are up. Output levels are up. Okay, it's all good. Okay, so we're shifting right. That's good news. All right, the only downside of that, as we said, is price levels. We're now intersecting our price point. It's a higher price level. Okay, so they tell us this will probably have no effect on the economy as a whole. Not true. An expansionary effect on the economy. Okay, so the economy is going to be expanding. Okay, so an expansionary effect on the economy. So this will have, not a contracting, let's see, an expansionary effect on the economy. So the national increase from 4 years ago, let's see, what's that going to do to the sale? That will have no significant impact. Will have no significant impact, let's see, on our high performance. Not true. High performance, luxury goods. So if GDP is going up, positively correlated. Okay, we're anticipating sales up. All righty. So the correct answer here is going to have, an expansionary effect. And let's see, did we give all the choices here? Okay, it's going to be on the next slide. So it's going to have an expansive effect and sales are going to increase. No effect, not decrease, increase, an expansionary effect on sales. Pre-phrase your answer. All righty, and that's the right way to do it. Sweet, let's try another one. Nationwide is on your side. Nationwide, there's a 10% increase in residential building permits. So anytime building is going up, so we have more building. Here's your short run aggregate supply. Here's your aggregate demand. Okay, so again, it's shifting right, but not so much aggregate demand. Short-run aggregate supply is shifting to the right. Our output level, GDP, up. Employment, up. Income, up. So this is an expansionary effect on the economy. And the more houses you have, the more houses. You got to love how I speak English. Huh, Rob? Where did I go to school? Don't want to go there. Price levels would fall. Okay, so as the supply of anything goes up, price levels are likely to go in the opposite direction. Okay, but an expansionary effect, this is good for the economy. So I'm looking for something that says it's going to have not contracting, an expansive effect on the economy. Okay, so and then what's that likely to do? Okay, if the economy is doing better, now every answer choice is about the contract sales. So folks, as GDP is up, GDI is up. People have more income, they're likely to buy more durable goods. So folks, the demand for cars is going to be up. That's the independent variable. So therefore, the demand for the contract parts that we sell to those, the dependent variable, that's going to be up with it. So that's going to increase. All righty, expansionary effect on the economy and increase. Okay, let's try another one. Let's see. Number 4, sorry about that. They tell us reliable. A competitor in the retail auto parts, 9% of revenues is undergoing a liquidation. So when the competition goes down, we would anticipate profit margins are going to go in what direction? Up. So competition down, profit margins are going to go up. Demand for our product is going to go up. That's going to be good news. Let's see. So they want to know, this will probably have no significant effect on the economy as a whole. So they're a small player in macroeconomic, while it'll affect this industry, that's not going to have any effect. So this is true, not going to have any effect on the economy as a whole, right? They're not too big to fail. They're a little small company. What's that going to do to the US GDP? The fact that this auto retail sales, retail auto parts manufacturers going out of business. So that's going to have no effect on the economy as a whole, on the macro economy. This industry, yes, but not the macro economy. And will have no effect on their sales. Of course, it's going to have an effect on their sales. Okay, less competition, profit margins are up, and less competition, higher sales, higher margins. So they're going to sell more. So I'm looking for no effect on the economy, no effect on the economy. So it's got to be the first or second, and it's going to increase, not reduce our sales. All right, hang with me. Number 5, viewership of Car Z home cable TV show for the non-mechanically inclined car owner, me. More people are watching this show. So what do we think? This was exhibit number 2, by the way. So if you wanted to tie that back, that was exhibit number 2. So we think sales, specifically retail sales, are going to go up. And then depending upon the luxury or the bargain parts, it depends what kind of car that person owns. Okay, so this will probably have no significant effect on the economy as a whole. That's correct. Macroeconomic wise, that's not going to have it. It's a little tiny, one little comment, not going to do much, if anything at all, in the economy as a whole. Micro, this industry, maybe a little bit, but macro, no effect. And will have no effect on their, no, it will have. We would anticipate sales are going to go up. They're going to do better. So no contracting, no expansive effect. A small company. Now, what happens to GDP affects the industry, but the industry, unless you're too big to fail, you know, the banking industry, insurance, that could affect the economy as a whole. But one little sector of the economy and then one little company within a little sector, no big deal. Normally, the individual company, the industry doesn't affect the macro as much as the macro affecting in the other direction, okay? So we're thinking sales down, decrease in sales, no effect on, increase in sales and no effect on the economy as a whole. All righty, let's try another one. Let's see, one significant business reason for that acquisition. Why did we do it? 2 things, diversification, and then we wanted that silicon tech, we wanted that technology. So we were doing this acquisition to diversify our sales and technology. Let's see. Did it to manage hyper competition? Absolutely not. Nothing about hyper competition. Okay, it's either diversification or technology. Which one did they give me here? Technology. Nothing to do with equity financing, debt financing, workforce diversity, none of that stuff. It was about technology and diversifying sales. Okay. And then another significant business reason, well, they already did technology. Now we're looking for diversify. Where do I see the word diversify? Whoop, there it is. Whoop, there it is. Let's go, baby. Let's go, let's go, let's go. All right. So deep dive. I promised you some task-based simulations. Now I want to do some math. And oh, sugar daddy. Oh, what's going on here, man? I already got the answers up here. We can't have that. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. I got to get rid of that. We'll keep that. Let's see. Hold on. Review. Hide ink. Delete all ink on the slide. Let's delete all ink on the slide. Hopefully that worked. Let's see. Did it delete all ink on the slide? Review. I want to delete all ink on all slides. I don't know. I'm going to have to do this one by one. Sorry, folks. Sugar daddy-o. So let's try some multiple choice now. Yeah.
Pete,
all right.
If you want to have anybody else speak while you're doing that, Dave can say something about IT.
Oh, yeah, Dave, go right ahead, brother. If you want to talk about some IT, Dave, perfect opportunity. There you go.
Dave, I hope you're ready for that. Sorry to spring it on you.
Yeah, so hey, everybody. So I think overall a good understanding of IT concepts, not just memorizing, that's what's going to give you that solid foundation to apply IT knowledge to a lot of different simulations and situations in complex MCQs as well. So when it's an IT question, a good thing to think about is who can use the system, who can change the system, how is that system used, what risk does it mitigate, what risk does using that system introduce, and then finally, how automated or manual is the use of the IT in that system. We think that this is going to allow you to think about IT from a control perspective, which is what really matters to accountants.
Love it. Thank you, Dave. Well, by the way, folks, anybody who's struggling with the IT, and we know a lot of you are, obviously, the more topics we cover, the less we can cover them in depth. So obviously we wanted to, and how do I get my face off here? Why am I seeing my big head? All right, there we go. So, yeah, so we're making, Rob and Paul are working behind the scenes to get you guys a steep discount. We don't know that number yet, but off the BEC product. So obviously I've covered the cost, managerial, corporate finance, and the econ in a lot of these sessions, but Dave is the IT guru. And then we also have the corporate governance. So if you are interested in looking at our question bank and working through Dave's lectures on IT and stuff, very, very valuable. And because we've already covered a lot of the product, yeah, it'll be a steep discount. We can't give the whole course away for free because then I will personally get stabbed by the owner of the company. He's already forewarned me, Pete, you do anything else for free? Nah, he's a good guy and understands, your stress, but obviously, yeah, we could get that to you. So Paul and Rob are going to give you a link or information later for you to contact us, or we'll reach out to you with that discount if you're really interested in all the IT. So continuing with what we've got here, obviously the task-based simulations, deep dive, right? The multiple choice, a little bit of everything. So now we'll switch gears, and then at the very end, I'll do another task-based simulation. So international transfer pricing, what is that all about? Think before you rush to the choices. What's the goal? I've got multiple subsidiaries around the world, and we're doing business with one another, right? Intercompany sales, remember that from consolidations, you got to eliminate the intercompany sales and profit. But when you have the ability to manipulate costs and shift them to different subsidiaries, who do you think, which subsidiary do you want to have the highest cost? The subsidiary that's located in the country with the highest what? Highest tax rate. You want that subsidiary that has the highest tax rate in the country with the highest tax rate to have the highest costs. We're looking to reduce the taxable income of companies doing business in countries with high tax rates. The lower their taxable income, the less tax they'll pay. That creates real after-tax cash flow for that conglomerate. So the companies that are in countries with low tax rates, You don't mind them carrying the profit for the conglomerate. So we want to shift the cost to the companies doing business in countries with the highest tax rate. Give them the lowest amount of taxable income, so they pay the least amount of tax. We'll maximize our after-tax cash flow. Which one talks about setting prices for multinationals to one another? Obviously, choice B. All righty, so you want to get that right, and you want to get it right quickly. All right. Anybody who's just joining us today for the first time, one of the beautiful things about the UWorld product is that we tell you for every answer choice, relative to other candidates, how you're doing. So what percentage of the other candidates chose choice B? So most of them got that correct. So where are you relative to the rest of the group? The other thing we are extremely proud of, folks, is that we illustrate. Pete, what the hell are you talking about, a conglomerate? You got a parent company, a conglomerate. They own all these different subsidiaries, all the different subsidiaries. You got subsidiary A doing business in country A. You got subsidiary B doing business in country B. The prices between the related parties, they are what? Controllable. And where do we want to shift the high cost to? If the tax rate in country A is higher, we want the cost here to be higher so that the taxable income will be lower. When you multiply that by a high tax rate, the tax paid overall will be lower, giving the conglomerate, the parent company, higher after-tax cash flow. This is the publicly traded company that everyone's valuing. And operating cash flow is the starting point for a lot of valuation models, like free cash flow to the firm, free cash flow to equity. So sub B is going to try to transfer a lot of those high costs over to sub A located in country A. All righty. Now, the price between the companies is controllable, but not with the external clients. That sales price, hard to manipulate that, right? So that's a different story. But I love the detailed explanatory answer. Folks, in the detailed explanatory answer, unlike any other product I've seen, we give you the definitions for what we're talking about. We talk about from every question, what are the things to remember? We talk about why choice A is correct, why choices C, D, and B are all incorrect. So it's really, it's second to none in the industry, really second to none. All right, let's try another one. They tell us we got a perfectly competitive market structure. The industry demand curve. Notice what they asked for, folks. Industry demand curve, not the individual firm demand curve, not the individual firm demand curve, the industry demand curve. Folks, when you're dealing with perfect competition, what do we know about perfectly competitive markets? So remember, you've got perfect competition exists kind of in theory, more realistic, monopolistic competition. Both of these markets, you're a price taker. Either the products are homogeneous or there's very little differentiation. That's why you got to take the market price. Okay, there's many small competitors, Monopolistic competition is different from an oligopoly, where you have relatively few competitors selling different products, which is different from a monopoly where you just have one, right? What kind of market are you when you're oligopoly or monopoly? You're a price seeker. You're looking to choose a selling price, not so much to just maximize sales, but to maximize profitability. The goal is to maximize profitability. So you're a price seeker, all righty? So we're in a perfectly competitive market, all right? So what does that industry demand curve look like? Folks, for an industry, for the market, whether you're looking at microeconomics or the overall market, macroeconomics or microeconomics, very similar. Your supply line, positively sloped, your demand line, negatively sloped. Quantity supplied goes up as your price level goes up. We can make more money. So as price goes up, quantity supplied goes up. Whereas with demand, as the price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. Here's your equilibrium price, your equilibrium quantity, your quantity at equilibrium. Here's your price at equilibrium. But folks, it's downward sloping, downward sloping. Now, why doesn't everybody get that right? You misread the question. Folks, for an individual firm in a perfectly competitive market, if they asked about an individual firm within that market, then your demand curve is horizontal. It's perfectly elastic. So in a perfectly competitive market, you've got no reason to charge a price above that market price. You take the market price. If you try to raise your price a little bit, you know what your sales go to? Zero. Why would I buy from you? You're selling nothing better. It's not a differentiated product. It's exactly the same product. So for an individual firm, we call that being perfectly elastic, and it's horizontal. So look, B and D would have been a good choice if they talked about the firm, and they could not give you both B and D if they'd have to give you one or the other, because they're both correct for an individual firm. So you know how in this question you knew B and D had to be wrong? If they can't both be right, if two choices are basically saying the same thing, if they can't both be right, they both have to be wrong. So immediately you knew B and D couldn't be right because they're the same thing. That applies to individual firms in perfect pure competition, okay? You try to raise your price at all, there's no excuse for that. You're selling a homogeneous product. There's too many other substitutes, too many other small companies I could buy from. I don't need you, okay? On the other hand, what's wrong with perfectly inelastic? What is perfectly inelastic? Sales of pharmaceuticals, your quantity, your price. The quantity has nothing to do with the price. It's not dependent upon price. It's dependent upon factors other than price. Think about the pharmaceutical industry, insulin. The demand for insulin has nothing to do with price levels. It's not like, hey, insulin's cheap. I think I'm going to go get me some diabetes. It don't work that way. It's independent of price. The vertical line means independent of price. It doesn't matter whether the price of insulin is high or low. It's totally independent of that. So pharmaceuticals, okay, change in price has no effect on quantity demanded, okay? So think about goods like pharmaceuticals, okay? Now, what does this word elastic mean? Elastic in English means what? Sensitivity. It's a measure of sensitivity. Your change in your quantity demanded given your change in price. Very important for companies that are trying to determine, hey, what should my selling price be? So folks, for most products, as the change in price goes up, the quantity demanded logically would go in what direction? Down. The question is, if I jack up my price by 10%, what if your quantity demanded comes down by 20%? When elasticity of demand is greater than 1, very sensitive to change in price. What does that mean? Many substitutes. Many substitutes. Your demand line is more likely to be what? Horizontal, flatter slope. They don't need to buy from you. They can buy from somebody else. There's many substitutes. But folks, when your change in quantity demanded relative to your change in price, always your change in dependent variable divided by your change in your independent. We jack up price by 10%, but let's say the quantity demanded only comes down by 1%. When elasticity is less than 1, then that good is what? It's a necessity. I got to have it, and I got to have it from you. Okay, there's nobody else to buy it from. Few substitutes. We need it in the short term. I need it, and I got to get it from you. All righty. So elasticity less than 1 would suggest what? Anytime you're looking at total sales, that's a function of your selling price per unit times the volume sold. When elasticity is less than 1, you could jack up your selling price because volume's only going to come down a little bit. Total sales will go up. But when people are very sensitive to your selling price and you try to raise your selling price, the change in your selling price might be positive, but the change in volume is going to be so dramatic, your overall sales revenue will go down. Okay, so elasticity, that measure of sensitivity. All right, the changes in this case, selling price. Again, we show you visually perfect competition. All right, but this is for the industry. The industry. So you don't have to draw, but it's always helpful if you can draw it because then you understand it. This on the right-hand side is the individual firm. So if they gave you this diagram and they gave you this diagram, you would have to know, even though it's perfect competition for the industry, the demand line is still downward sloping, whereas for the individual firm, it's horizontal, okay? So remember, the forces of supply and demand, forces of supply and demand dictate price. Once the market sets the price, that dictates the quantity demanded and quantity supplied at that price level. Remember, if there's no government interference, there'll be no shortage and no surplus. If there's no price ceilings, no rent control, no price floors, a minimum wage, when there's none of that stuff, we're not going to have any shortage. We're not going to have any surplus. Okay, the price is set, forces of the market, and then your quantity demanded will equal your quantity supplied. Okay, but when there's government intervention, if there's an effective price ceiling or an effective price floor, if there's a price ceiling, let's say on rent, they don't let the price go up to that equilibrium price, then the quantity supplied for apartments is likely to be less than the quantity demanded at that artificially low price. That'll cause a shortage. Conversely, if there's an effective price floor, a minimum wage, then the quantity demanded for labor at that artificially high price is less than the quantity supplied for labor. That'll cause a surplus. But for a price floor to be effective, it's got to be above the equilibrium price. For a floor to be effective, it's got to be set above the equilibrium price. For a ceiling to be effective, it's got to be set below that equilibrium price. All righty? Okay. And again, beautiful, beautiful, well written here, the demand curve for the firm. Okay, what is the definition? What is that price inelastic, even though it didn't apply here? Hey, what is that? Oh yeah, that's that vertical line. What are the things to remember? I mean, you just can't beat it. Every question has value. That's why what we do in our software, just so you know at UWorld, that's different. We don't shove down your throat, work 50,000 questions. Of course I'll be prepared, but you're wasting my time. If I could study in 80 hours rather than 100, why would I want to study in 100 and get the same score? So what we're going to do is tell you two things. Number one, are you working the correct volume of questions, which is important? And number two, the percent correct or where you need to be. Both of those factors are important. If you tell me, Pete, I got 90% of the questions correct, but you only worked 10 questions, I'm not impressed. If you tell me you worked 20,000 questions, but you only got 20% correct, I'm not impressed. It's a combination of the volume and the percent correct, and that's what we keep track of for you. All righty, I gotta do some math questions here, otherwise I'm gonna have a heart attack. So these are easy theory. Let's jump ahead. Let's do a math question. So take a second, set it up, and let's do some math. All right, folks. Where do we always start? You do not start here because you have no idea what to do with all these facts. Where do we always start? The question stem. This is where you start. Because then it might trigger, like, for example, in this question, they want you to calculate residual income for Z, this company. Well, what is residual income? It's income different from the fair amount given the risk assumed. How do you get a fair amount of income? How do you come up with this residual income? Well, residual income, there's two ways of doing it. One way is to looking at the company's net operating profit after tax. NOPAT is the company's earnings before interest and tax, your operating income, not subtracting out the interest yet, but then multiply that by 1 minus the tax rate. The company's actual operating income after tax minus the company's total capital that they raised. What amount of total capital did they raise times their weighted average cost of capital? How do you get total capital? Total capital is your total assets minus your operating liabilities, non-interest bearing. Or another way to get total capital, it's all of your interest bearing debt, interest bearing, short-term or long-term, plus equity, plus all your equity, preferred equity or common equity. Total capital is the sum of all your interest bearing debt, note, bond, debenture, mortgage, line of credit. It's negotiated. You got to pay interest to the creditors. Okay, it's interest bearing. Interest bearing debt plus equity is your total capital. Total capital times the company's WACC. WACC is your hurdle expressed as a percentage, but I want my hurdle in dollars. So if you take WACC, multiply it by your total capital, that gets you a hurdle in dollars. Okay, and then you take NOPAT minus that. Some of you may have learned this in school as NOPAT minus SWAC, the dollar amount of total capital times the company's WACC. Okay, or if you just want to look at it from the stockholder's perspective, net income. That's the income available to all suppliers of equity, preferred or common. Okay, you multiply that by the beginning book value, and let's do this for common equity. Let's say all equity is common. Your beginning book value of common equity times your required return on common equity. How do you get your required return on common equity? Remember, dividend yield plus growth, a build-up approach, or that capital asset pricing model. All right, two ways of getting residual income. What did they give me in these facts? Operating income, that's your NOPAT, $200,000. They've got $50,000 charge for using Kim's assets. Folks, that's your hurdle in dollars. That's your total capital times WACC. 50,000 is what they have available, or what their hurdle was in dollars. They would have liked to have $50,000 available to all suppliers of capital. That's the charge for using the capital. Well, we got a lot more than that. We got 200,000. 200 minus the 50, what's our residual income? $150,000. Choice D. What's the deal with the dividends? Distractor information. Even if you were doing this approach, it's net income minus, remember, there's two ways to make money on stock. One way to make money on stock is a dividend, but not all stocks pay a dividend. Change in price is another way to get a return. Okay, so we don't need dividends per se. Change in price. Your change in price plus the dividends divided by your beginning price, therein lies your return on equity. All righty. So it's the income available to all suppliers of capital times the beginning book value of common equity times that required rate of return on common equity. All right. The dividends total distractor information had no bearing on the solution. Total profitability irrelevant because we were just looking for what? Z, not the total company, but specifically Z. All right. Again, residual income, if it's positive, then your actual return in dollars was greater than your required return in dollars. Residual income is a measure of dollars. Anytime your residual income is negative, then your actual return was less than your required return, but it's a measure in dollars. Sometimes they call it economic value added. Okay, we'll see it again in a little bit as NPV. Again, we give you visuals always in addition to what I'm doing. I'm explaining it step by step, but in the detailed explanatory answer, we give you nice and neat. Everything I'm talking about is regurgitated for you. And again, not only why is the right answer right, but why are the wrong answers wrong? Okay, so it's all part of what we put together, as well as a summary of, hey, by the way, here are the big things to remember. Okay, let's try another one. Question number 6, take a second, set it up. All right, this company wants a 12% cost of capital. They're looking to offer a discount to the customer. So the question first becomes, why offer a discount to customers? Expedite cash inflows. The goal is to expedite cash inflows.
I have a question I want to ask you in the middle of what you're doing.
Sure.
Someone is asking in our group here, what if what if we were given cost of equity in this problem? Are you?
Then you need if they gave you cost of equity, then your residual income, you would need your net income. And let's say it was for the company overall, you would need your beginning book value of common equity and your cost of so if you were given your cost of common equity, let's say that's 8%. Nah, it's too low. Let's make it 12%. All right. Let's say the company's beginning book value for common equity, assets minus liabilities, you got your equity minus your preferred equity. We isolate the common equity only. Okay. Let's say that's $1 million for argument's sake, 1 million. Now you have your hurdle in dollars, $120,000. Then you would take your net income, whatever that is. Let's make the net income, let's just say, I don't know, we'll make it $180,000. Then our residual income, $60,000. But if you're doing residual income, if they gave you the cost of common equity, that's only relevant if they also give you either beginning book value of common equity or the ability to calculate the beginning book value of common equity. And why is it the beginning, by the way? Because this is what you have available at the beginning of the year to generate that net income. So that is the convention for doing residual income. But the cost of common equity by itself would be of no value unless you have the beginning book value of common equity. And if they gave you the weighted average cost of capital, then you would take the weighted average cost of capital, multiply that by the total capital to get your hurdle in dollars. And then you would use EBIT times 1 minus the tax rate to subtract from that value. Got it? We good, Rob?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes,
oh, you got it, Rob. You got it. Yeah, keep them coming if they come along. And I'm going to be here at the end. If there's any other questions you guys want to ask, I'll stick around. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm thinking at about half an hour before the end. I've got a few questions that I'm waiting to ask. So that'll be good.
Okay, you got it. So they tell us a company wants to approximate a 12% interest rates based on a 365-day year. So they want to offer somebody a discount, their customers a discount. Why do they want to do that? Expedite cash inflows, but they want to keep that cost at approximately 12%. Which of these discount combinations will approximate 12%? I don't know. So I'm just going to plug and go. I'm going to try choice A. The way you get your cost, discount of 2, then they only pay 98% of the bill. That's called your periodic rate, not your annualized. That's your periodic rate. That works out to be 0.02048. I try that. I then multiply that by 365 divided by what I call the extra days. If they take advantage of the discount, they got to pay the bill in 15. But if they don't take advantage of the discount, then they got to pay in how many days? 45. So what's the extra days the customer gets if they don't take advantage of the discount? 30. 45 minus 15. So the extra days, 45 minus 15, your denominator's 30. That gets you the number of periods. So 365 divided by 30, 12.167 periods. That works out to be 24.91% too high. That's too high of a cost. I'm not giving that type of discount. Too damn high. You know what I noticed something though? 24 is double 12, right? So I'm looking for something that's half of 2. You know what I'm going to try next? Choice B. It's got the same number of days, but it's half the discount. I bet you that will approximate 12%. Let's see if it does. You ready? Upside down. 365, 45 minus 15, 30 extra days. Discount 1, so you only pay 99% of the bill. So 1 divided by 99.010101, multiply that by 12.167 times. That's approximately 12%. That is exactly 12.28. Your answer has got to be choice B. Okay. Now notice C. I just want to show you something. You see how the discount offered in choice C is less than B? Wouldn't you think the cost would be less if we offered them a discount of 0.75 rather than 1? Do you think logically we'd get a cost of low, right? When we offered a discount of 2, the cost was 24%. We offered them a discount of only 1, 12. So wouldn't you think if we offer them a discount of 0.75, we would get something less than 12? You would think that, right? But let's check it out. Let's do the math. 0.75, you take a 0.75% discount, you only have to pay me 99.25% of the bill times 365. But check this out, folks. If they don't take advantage of the discount, they got to pay in 30 days, not 45, 30. And they only have 10 days to take advantage of the discount. So, folks, the extra days is only 20 versus 30. Granted, the discount is lower, but the extra days are lower as well. Lower discount, lower cost. But as the number of extra days in the denominator goes down, your cost goes up. So check this out. You ready? Your periodic cost, 0.007557 times 365 divided by 20, 18.25 times. That cost is actually higher. So your cost of offering a discount is dependent not only upon the discount percentage, but the number of extra days as well. It's a function of both. And you can either have 365 or 360 in the denominator, but it's a function of both of those two key variables. And there's your cost. The higher the discount, the higher the cost. The lower the number of extra days, the higher the cost. Okay, so in a theory.
I'm sorry, Pete, I have another question for you. Someone is asking why the 1 over 99. What do those numbers mean?
That's your discount divided by your price. So if you offer your customers a 1% discount, what percentage of the price do they have to pay you? Only 99%, right? If you offer them a 2% discount, what percentage of the price do they have to pay? Only 98. You offer them a 3% discount, they only have to pay what percentage of the price? 97. From here on in, discount divided by price gets you your periodic cost. And you annualize that by multiplying by the number of periods. The number of periods is 365 divided by the extra days. Rob, are you drafting?
I'm following every word of you.
You got it, brother. All right. There's your formula. But convert it to English. Discount divided by the price paid, 365. That denominator is what? The extra days. All righty. Let's try another one. Ready? Number 7. Take a second, set it up. All right, again, where do we start, folks? The question stem. We've got a particular job. All right, we're looking at a particular job. 1,500 direct labor hours are budgeted. That's the budget. Using direct labor hours as the cost driver, how much overhead should be applied? Stop right there. How do we apply overhead, and where is that important? Step number 1, how do we apply overhead? You take your budgeted costs, your budgeted manufacturing overhead. What's manufacturing overhead? Indirect materials, indirect labor, and all costs associated with operating the factory. Rent in the factory, depreciation in the factory, utilities in the factory. You take your budgeted manufacturing overhead and you divide that by your budgeted cost driver. Folks, this is your traditional costing system. We only have one cost driver. So traditional costing, we're going to assign all overhead to products using one overhead rate, one cost driver, one cost pool. Okay, all manufacturing overhead added together. So I immediately write down my formula. That's my overhead rate. For every, and what are we using? Direct labor hours. For every hour somebody's working in the factory, on average, how much overhead should we be applying to that product? Now, why do we apply? First of all, what does apply mean in English? Estimated overhead. During the year, we got to apply the overhead because I don't know the actual amount until the end of the year. We'll keep track of the actual costs, but normally you don't know the actual indirect costs until the end of the period. So in the meantime, I got to come up with a cost for my products. I got to figure out my cost of goods sold. I got to know what my cost is so I can figure out how much to sell it for. All righty, so we apply the overhead. That means you've estimated it. Okay, you've estimated it. All right, so budgeted manufacturing overhead. Let's see. They tell me for the current year, the budgeted cost driver activity levels for direct labor hours and direct labor costs, 20,000 and 100,000. The $100,000 for direct labor dollars is irrelevant. We're using as the cost driver, you could use direct labor dollars, but they're not. They're using hours. For every hour somebody's in the factory, how much overhead are we anticipating? Now they tell me the budgeted, not the actual. What's the budgeted variable and fixed manufacturing overhead? So we've got a fixed component and a variable component. Total manufacturing overhead, all of it's being applied together using a single overhead rate, $75,000. That is my budgeted overhead. $75,000 divided by 20,000 hours. What's my overhead rate? I got an overhead rate of $3.75 per direct labor hour. For every hour somebody's in the factory, I'm thinking I'm going to have on average about $3.75 of overhead. All righty, now I need to know what am I, so step number one is getting your overhead rate. Now I need to know, step two, what were the actual hours worked? The actual direct labor hours times that overhead rate, $3.75, that gets me my applied overhead, All righty, so what's my actual direct labor hours? Here are my actual costs and hours. Direct labor costs, irrelevant. Machine hours, irrelevant. Okay, I want direct labor hours. Now check this out, you ready? They tell me we worked 1,500 hours on this job. Total for the company was 21,000. What are we applying overhead? For the entire company or just this job? This is the advantage of reading the question stem first. We already highlighted just this job. So folks, all of this information here, distractor, no bearing on the solution. We are applying overhead not for the entire company, just this job. So folks, the actual direct labor hours for just this job, 1,500 hours. Multiply that by the $3.75 per hour. How much is that? $5,625. $5,625. All righty. Now that's part of a bigger puzzle, folks. What's the bigger puzzle? And by the way, only half the students got that correct. So challenging question. Now, what is that a bigger piece of? Step number one, you got to figure out your raw materials used. Your beginning raw materials plus what you purchase, that gets you raw materials, AFU, available for use. AFU, available for use. Minus your ending raw materials, what you didn't use, gets you the raw materials used. Step one is complete. Now you need your current manufacturing costs. That is the sum of direct materials used, direct labor, plus overhead, not actual, but applied. That gets you your current manufacturing costs. You got to know this inside and out, man. Make that flashcard with me. Don't watch me write it. Write it with me. What you write, you will remember. You take your beginning work in process. You now add your current manufacturing costs. Current manufacturing costs. That gets you your total. Subtract your ending work in process. Now you have your cost of all goods manufactured. This goes to finished goods. Now you've got your beginning finished goods plus that cost of goods manufactured. There's your cost of all goods available for sale minus your ending finished goods. And what do we have? Cost of goods sold. And where does that go? Income statement. Where does ending finished goods go? Balance sheet. You got to know that cold. Now, hey, that was pretty quick. This is a review, man. Most of you are sitting for this exam in a few days or in a few weeks. All righty. Hopefully, this is not the first time you're seeing this stuff. The first time we go through it in the software, slow and steady. Rob, tell me, how slow am I in those videos? Rob, tell them.
Well, Slow and steady is the right way. In the videos that
Rob is stuttering because he knows my videos are long, but I waste no time. None of us waste your time. There's no nonsense in those videos. But slow and steady wins the race. Anyone who's cutting corners and skipping stuff or merely reading through PowerPoints is wasting your valuable study time. I don't know what piece of the puzzle they're going to test. How the hell do we know? It could be any piece of the puzzle, or in a task-based simulation, it could be every piece of the puzzle, right? So folks, when you go through the lecture the first time, it's slow and steady. As you apply it and practice it, now you got to be a little bit more proficient. That's why you never do task-based simulations until you do what? The individual multiple choice questions that cover the individual pieces of the puzzle. Then the task-based simulation puts it all together. So there's a logical sequence. And just as an FYI, the other thing we encourage you with UWorld, we don't force you to watch every video in the same way we don't force you to do every damn question. You may not need it. Look, if you say, Pete, I just had a class in cost accounting and got an A. As a matter of fact, I knew it better than my teacher. I threw the teacher out of the room. I taught the damn class. Well, then you probably don't need to watch our video. Go right to the multiple choice questions. And now your performance is what it says it is. Do you do the right volume and get the right % correct? If you did, great. You don't have to watch that video, you move on. Conversely, though, if you're not as proficient as you thought, no problem. Then you go back to step one. The lecture's the insurance. It's there if you need it. But we as a company do not force you to watch every lecture and work every question. That's doing you a disservice and wasting your valuable study time spinning your wheels on stuff you may already be proficient at. We don't do that to you. That's why we're a hell of a lot more efficient. Same passing rate, if not better, but we're a hell of a lot more time efficient, okay? Different policies. All right. Why am I screaming at you guys? Rob, why am I screaming at them? What is wrong with me? Why do I scream?
you're just enthusiastic, and that's why we love you, Pete.
I think I have mental health issues, actually. All right, let's try another one. Let's go, Paulie boy. Who's better than us, Paul? Who's better than us?
Nobody.
There you go. And I like he did a little New York accent, man. Come on, I'm loving it. All right, question number 8. No more fooling around. Let's go. All righty, start with your question stem. They don't have any beginning or ending work in process. You know what I know then? Current manufacturing cost equals my cost of goods manufactured, because when there's no beginning or ending work in process, then your current manufacturing cost is your cost of goods manufactured, because the only difference between your current manufacturing cost and your cost of goods manufactured is attributed to work in process. If you have no beginning or ending work in process, then your current manufacturing costs and your cost of goods manufactured are one and the same. Big help. All righty, so they want to know what's the cost of jobs completed that went to finished goods. All righty, so cost completed. So that's your cost of goods manufactured, our current manufacturing cost. So I'm going to set it up. I've got my raw materials used plus my direct labor plus my manufacturing overhead. That's my current manufacturing cost, which in turn equals my cost of goods manufactured, also known as cost of what's completed. All righty, there's no beginning or ending work in process. All righty, so they want to know what's the cost of jobs completed. Now I'm ready to read the facts and cherry pick the relevant information. So here we go. Under pick company's job order, what does that mean? Relatively few units manufactured. Every unit is unique, has a VIN number, right? Job order costing. Overhead is applied to work in process using what? Predetermined overhead rate. If there's only one rate, what's that called? A traditional costing system. When there's multiple overhead rates, that's called what? Activity-based costing, which is a more precise way of assigning overhead to your various products. Here, single overhead rate. All right, direct materials issued to production. Do I see any beginning raw materials or any ending raw materials? I do not. So therefore, everything issued must have been used. I got one piece of the puzzle, 90,000. Drop the zeros. Indirect materials. That's important if I'm looking to do what? Actual overhead. That's part of your actual overhead. Remember that manufacturing overhead T account? Manufacturing overhead. What's on your debit side is your actual indirect materials, indirect labor, and all the costs actually in the factory. Your applied side is the estimated amount. Okay, so that's part of my actual distractor information. Manufacturing overhead actually incurred, that's on my debit side. Manufacturing overhead applied is what I'm looking for. So this 125 is distractor. I don't want the actual, I want the applied overhead. So that's 113. That's on this side. I'll deal with that in a second. Okay, now I'm just looking for my direct labor costs. Direct labor costs, 107. So take your 90, your 107 plus your 113, add it all up, 90, 107, 113. What's our cost of all units completed? Because there's no beginning or ending work in process, 310. Now, if we did have beginning or ending work in process, then it would be your beginning work in process plus those current manufacturing costs, 310. You'd get your total, subtract out what you haven't finished, which we don't know or is 0 in this case, and there's your cost of goods manufactured in this case because beginning and ending were 0. All right, now I want to deal with this, folks. Is this good news or bad news? I have a debit balance in my manufacturing overhead T account. What do we call it when you have a debit balance? We call that being over applied. Over applied. The actual overhead, or I should say under applied, your actual overhead, 125, greater than what you estimated, 113. We underestimated. You underestimated the cost. That's bad news. When you underestimate your cost, that's bad. We say that's unfavorable. So we're going to have a $12,000 debit balance in this account. How do we get rid of that $12,000 debit balance? How do you get rid of a debit? With a credit at the end of the period. What do we do at the end of the period? Once you know your actual costs, what do we do with any debit or credit balance? Here we want to get rid of a debit. So we're going to credit the manufacturing overhead for 12,000. So we can get rid of that debit balance of 12. But what are you going to debit? Cost of goods sold. This is bad news, folks. Your cost of goods sold is going to go up. If your cost of goods sold goes up, your profit, your gross profit is going in what direction? Down. That's why this is unfavorable. So whenever you have a debit balance, in English, you underestimated your overhead. If you underestimated your overhead, then at the end of the period, when you actually know the real amount, you're going to have to increase your cost of goods sold. All right, get rid of the debit balance with a credit, and that's how you close that out. Okay. Let me do one more multiple choice, and then I want to do another task-based simulation, and then we'll break it down for questions. Let's see. Let's try. Now we just did one of these. Let's do number. I want to do a different topic. Yeah, let's do number 10. Number 10. All right, folks, 2 for 1. The way you do direct labor variance is the exact same way you're going to do variable overhead so long as the cost driver is direct labor. All right, so a general rule, overhead is applied using direct labor. If that's the case, then what I'm about to show you is 2 for 1. You could use this for your direct labor variance. You could also use it for your variable overhead variance. I want to see my variance, a spending variance and efficiency variance, okay? A spending and an efficiency variance. So we want to cover the efficiency, but I'm going to do both. How do you do it? Actual hours times your actual rate. Folks, if you're doing variable overhead, then you'll do your variable overhead rate. If you're doing the direct labor variance, then you'll use your direct labor rate, the standard rate for direct, your actual rate for direct labor. That gets compared to actual hours times the standard rate for, in this case, labor. If you're doing variable overhead, it'll be the budgeted rate for variable overhead. That then gets compared to standard hours allowed at the standard rate. So I want to see my variance. This is my spending variance, the comparison of those two. This is my efficiency variance, spending and efficiency. Okay, I want to see my variance. SE, spending and efficiency. All righty, so let's set it up. They tell us the standard labor cost to produce 1 pound of an output is presented below. So here are my standards. The actual production is also given. So I have both the standard and the actual. All right, here's the direct labor standard. You ready? Every unit I produce should take 0.4 hours. Stop right there. Why is that important? To calculate this thing called standard hours allowed. Given the actual production, given actual output, what was my actual output? 15,500 pounds. Okay, 15,500 pounds of stuff. Every unit we produced should have taken times the standard allowed per unit. For every unit I produce, it should have taken how many hours? It should take 0.4 hours. So given that actual output was 15,500 units, every unit should have taken 0.4 hours to manufacture. How many hours should we have worked? 6,200 hours. You have one piece of the puzzle. 6,200 hours, that's your standard hours allowed. Okay. All right. Now, let's see. Actual labor costs, $75,250. They gave me this piece of the puzzle right here. Actual hours times the actual rate, 75,250. Okay, how many hours did we actually work? The actual hours, 6,250 actual hours. Put that everywhere where the actual is needed. Okay, now I don't have the actual rate, but I could certainly find it. If you actually spent $75,250 on labor and the actual hours was 6,250 hours, we must have paid them how much per hour? $12.04 an hour. That's the actual rate, $12.04. What did we think we were going to pay them per hour? Here's the standard. We thought we were going to pay them, everywhere you see standard rate, put in $12 per hour. So 6,250 actual hours at $12 an hour, we should have spent 75,000. Look, it's very easy to see. You paid them a little bit more than we thought. What's the difference? $250 unfavorable spend, not that big of a deal. You paid them 4 cents more an hour, but maybe they were more efficient. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. I don't know. Okay, but that's your spending variance. Now, they should have worked 6,200 hours making these 15,500 units. They should have worked 6,200. They actually worked 6,250. They were inefficient. My efficiency variance, not only did we pay them a little bit more, we didn't even get anything extra. All right, so they were also inefficient because the actual hours are more than what they should have worked given the output. So folks, that efficiency variance, $74,400 versus $75,000. How much is that? $600 unfavorable. $600 unfavorable. What's your total variance? The total variance, $850 unfavorable. Okay, $850 unfavorable. But all they wanted was the efficiency. The E and the C, the variance. Remember, direct labor and variable overhead, you set up the exact same way. Actual hours at the actual rate. Just if you're doing variable overhead, you want the variable overhead rate, not the direct labor rate, the variable overhead rate. Actual hours at the standard variable overhead rate. Standard hours allowed, calculated the exact same way. Just make sure you're multiplying by the variable overhead rate. And now you learn how to do your direct labor and your variable overhead. How do you do fixed manufacturing? Your volume variance. Your volume variance, and I'll do it here to keep it neat. Your volume variance, folks, is a function of actual output minus your budgeted output times your fixed overhead rate per unit. Okay, actual output minus what you budgeted times your fixed overhead rate. That's called a volume variance. Okay, a volume variance. So that's your fixed overhead variance. Okay, so that volume variance, that's your fixed overhead variance. It's called a volume variance. Got it? All right. You know what? I think, let's see. I don't know. These are questions you haven't seen before. Yeah, you know what? I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to go back. I want to do, I'm going to keep it. I want to do, let's see. I want to do another task-based simulation because I want to review topics I didn't have any multiple choice on this session or the last session. So I want to go way back in time. Yes, sir.
All right. Before you do that, I have a question that's related to what you were just doing. A couple questions.
Absolutely.
Is there a quick way to find it favorable or unfavorable?
For what?
Well, it was in relation to what you were just doing.
For the fixed overhead?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what do you think logically? Anytime your actual production is greater than your budgeted production, right? We like it when we produce more than we budgeted. Okay, but that's an uncontrollable volume variance. All right, but that's due to actual production being different from what we budgeted. Granted, you're going to spend more money, but that's because you produced more. So it takes a little bit more analysis. It's counterintuitive. You might actually spend more on that fixed overhead, but if that's due to your actual production being greater than what you budgeted, then you're okay with that. But it's called a volume variance. It's generally called an uncontrollable variance. But obviously you want to produce more than what you budgeted. But that means you'll spend more money. But obviously if your actual production is greater than what you budgeted, so long as there's demand for it as well, that's generally good news.
And then there was a related question that was sort of toward the beginning of the one you just did, which was, why do we not use the actual overhead?
The actual manufacturing overhead? Let's see. Because I think they would just, no, we did.
Okay, it was a question asked early in the process, so maybe that was already answered.
Yeah. You know what? Let's see. That actual amount of labor we did use, the $75,250 was actually used. What they didn't give us was the $12.04 rate, but they gave us the actual hours. They gave us the actual dollars. I just backed into the actual rate, but that was in fact given information, $75,250. Yep. Got it?
Yep. Thank you very much.
You got it, brother. All righty, let's see. Yeah, so I want to go through this. This was going to review a lot of stuff that I did not do in multiple choice, whether it was at Deloitte this week or EY or in the past two sessions. This goes back, way back, but it's a great question to review a lot of key points. So let's take a look at this one. Let's see. So again, before we read the facts, what do they want us to do with these facts, right? So here's what we got. What amount should be budgeted for cash payments for materials purchased? So we got to find our purchases first, right? So we got to find our purchases and then pay for it. So for something called a frosted product, using variable costing, what do you think your income is going to be? Using absorption costing, what do you think your income is going to be? So folks, I call this legalized cheating, because by looking at the questions first, I know now there's formulas for this stuff, right? So variable costing, also known as direct costing, that's your sales minus all your variable costs, manufacturing or non-manufacturing, all variable costs, manufacturing or non-manufacturing, or part of SG&A, gets you contribution margin, what you have to cover all your fixed costs. Your fixed costs are going to be manufacturing, non-manufacturing, as long as they're a fixed cost. And there's your net income ignoring taxes. That's variable costing. Okay, what's absorption costing? Well, absorption is your regular GAAP income statement, right? Absorption is your regular GAAP income statement. You've got your sales minus your cost of goods sold, product costs only, your direct material, your direct labor, your variable overhead, and your fixed overhead. all manufacturing overhead. That gets you your gross profit minus your SG&A, whether it's a variable cost or a fixed cost. And there's your income, ignoring taxes, using absorption. Absorption is what you do for external GAAP, external financial reporting. Variable costing, direct costing, is used internally, cost, volume, profit analysis. Like, for example, if you take your total fixed costs and you divide that by your contribution margin per unit, that tells you the number of units you've got to sell to break even. Very useful. Okay, so cost, volume, profit analysis. All right, so what else do they want us to do? Actual results are as budgeted, except that only 60,000 of the 70,000 units produced were sold. What would be your income under absorption if you only sell 60? So I got to redo absorption, selling only 60 for this. This is all about frosted flakes. All right, we got a special order of 4,000 units for frosted flakes. Stop right there. I don't even know any detail. You ready? What are we thinking? To do a special order, I got to accept or reject. I'll accept if the revenue of that special order is greater than the relevant costs, right? What are your relevant costs? You got your variable costs and possibly opportunity costs. Possibly opportunity costs. Opportunity costs, if we have to forego sales on another product. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You might have the capacity. This means you lack capacity. Okay? So then you'd have those opportunity costs. All right, what else do they tell me? What's the minimum price that we should sell this free? So this one was frosted. This is freeze, some freeze product. What should we sell it at? Well, you want to make a profit. You got to make sure your selling price is greater than your total cost, right? Your total cost, what do we mean by total cost? You got your fixed costs, you got your variable costs. We got to make sure our selling price is greater than our total cost. All right, otherwise we don't want to do it. All right, what else do we got? Let's see, make or buy. So some cheese culture. What the hell is make or buy about it? We'll make it if the relevant cost to make it is less than the cost to buy it. Okay, what do we mean by the relevant cost to make it? You got your variable costs. Maybe you've got some opportunity costs. Maybe you got some controllable fixed costs. I don't know, but your relevant costs, what we're looking for. Hey, should we sell it now or process it further? Sell it now or process it further? You ready? What's that all about? Well, selling it or process it further is my incremental revenue greater than my incremental relevant costs. Okay, always looking at just the relevant costs. Hey, should you eliminate or keep a product line? Well, eliminating or keeping a product line, does the benefit outweigh the cost? Okay, if you eliminate a product line, what's the benefit of eliminating a product line? Well, the benefit, what's the benefit? You'll have saved costs. Specifically, what kind of saved costs will you have? The avoidable fixed costs. That's the good news. That's the benefit. You won't have that. Okay. What's the cost if you drop a product line? What's the cost? You're going to forego the contribution margin. All right, so we got to do cost benefit. So before I read any of the facts, I got everything set up. Now I know what to look for. All righty, so let's go back now. Let's take a look at our facts. Okay, they tell me, let's see, we got a food producer, several divisions, many aspects. Food, non-durable, right? Non-durable, not nearly as cyclical as what? Durable. Now, food, it depends too. You know, you might have luxury items like a Rob eats those $80 steaks he gets. You know, you got to have high GDP, you got to have big income like Rob to buy those $80 steaks. But most food items, us would buy the burgers and hot dogs. We don't have Rob's income. Well, with the burgers and hot dogs, less cyclical. All righty. But food overall, non-durable. All right. So they tell us we're looking for costs and cash flows, blah, 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 blah. So here we go. We got a freeze product. We were thinking about freeze. We're looking at something called cost plus pricing for freeze. We use a standard minimum markup of 20%. So folks, you know what they just told you? Your profit margin, they want that to be 20%. So whatever your sales are, your costs, there's your profit. Well, folks, if your profit is 20%, then your costs are what? 80%. Profit is 20% of your sales, but profit 20 divided by 80 is 25% of your cost. Okay, it's 25% of your cost. All right, so your sales, 100%, we got to cover our cost, which is 80, and our profit, which is 20, but that's 20% of sales. You could also figure that your profit is 25% of your costs. While it's 20% of your sales, it's 25% of your costs. We'll see why that's important in a little bit. Actually, let's do them one by one. You ready? Since we got the freeze, let's do the freeze. You ready? Let's answer. Let's find the information about the freeze product. So this is the frosted. We got a bunch of questions on frosted. We'll deal with frosted. Let's jump to freeze. Let's jump to freeze. Let's do them one at a time. This is some aquatic division. All right, that's not freeze, so at least we can scan and see what kind of information they gave us. Here's freeze. Here we go. You ready? So let's jump to freeze. Let's do them one at a time. Okay. So for freeze, you ready? Here are my costs. Direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead, fixed overhead. This is all applied. This is all applied. So $3.67 is my cost per unit. Given our information, sales 100%, our cost 80%, profit 20%. Profit 20 divided by the cost 80. One way of doing this is profit's going to be 25% of cost. We know it's 20% of sales, but it's 25% of your cost. Now that you know your cost per unit, multiply that please by 25%. 367 times 25%, profit is 25% of cost. So let's see, your profit would be therefore 92 cents. So cost plus pricing, cost 367 plus the profit 92 cents. 367 plus 92, I got that to be 459. Now that's method number one. Nothing wrong with that. Works just fine, especially if they give you your profit as a percentage of the cost. That methodology is fantastic. Okay. So our selling price, 459, our cost, 367. Profit, we said, is 92 cents. That is 20% of sales. 92 divided by 459, just to confirm, is 20% of sales. Cool. But let me show you another method that might work for you. Okay, everything is dependent upon the way the facts are presented. Remember, your cost is 80% of your selling price, right? Your cost is 80% of your selling price. So if you know your cost is 367, and that's 80% of your selling price, do some simple algebra. Divide both sides by 80%. 367 divided by 80%. What's our selling price got to be? 459. Same result, different format. Okay, sometimes you need different ways to approach it depending upon the way the facts are presented. Here, you could have done it either way, whatever works for you. But I want you to be conscious of them giving you profit, not as a percentage of sales, that's your profit margin, but profit as a percentage of cost. If they gave you your profit as 25% of cost, well, then obviously 25% of 367 is your profit of 92 cents. Cost plus profit, it's another way to get your selling price. One question down, a few to go. Hang with me, hang with me. That's Mr. Freeze. All right, let's see what else they give us. Ready? They tell me the dairy division needs 20,000. Oh yeah, I saw something with cheese culture. If we buy the culture, the dairy division can eliminate $2 of fixed overhead. Is that relevant or irrelevant? As a general rule, when they say nothing, you think fixed costs If they say nothing, as a general rule, irrelevant for decision making. Why? They're unavoidable. They don't change. So you ignore fixed costs as a general rule, but not always. What's an exception? When they tell you the fixed costs are controllable, they use the word controllable, or they use the word avoidable. Now fixed costs are relevant for decision making. So the avoidable fixed cost is $2. That's relevant. Okay, they tell me the remaining fixed overhead will continue, so that's irrelevant. The cost to buy is $44. So cost to buy 44 versus the cost to make. I don't know that yet. Do not know the cost to make. We got to figure that out, but we're going to do that right now. You want to choose the lower cost, obviously. Choose lower cost option. All right, so the hurdle is 44. What's the cost to make? We're going to consider that $2 cost. So now I'm going to go to the cheese culture facts. Let me find the cheese culture facts. All right. Let's see. This is the produce division. That's not cheese culture. Cheese. Cut the cheese right there. Let's cut it up, baby. Let's figure out what our costs are. So you ready? The costs. What are your manufacturing costs? Well, let's see. For the cheese, we've got, let's see, our relevant costs. So our cost to buy 44 versus the relevant cost to make. Relevant cost to make. That's what we got to compare it against. Don't know that number. Okay, but we do know one of the relevant costs. We already have the avoidable fixed cost. That's why this back and forth approach, you got to freshen your mind. You don't have to keep rereading. When you got multiple topics, one subtopic at a time, one little multiple choice at task-based simulation, just like 6 or 7 or 8 multiple choice jammed together. Separate them back and forth, one at a time. So I know I got the avoidable fixed costs, variable costs, variable costs, variable costs. Variable costs are relevant costs. Okay, so my variable costs, my direct materials, 16, my direct labor, 8, my variable overhead of 16. Of this fixed overhead, the 8 is irrelevant. Only 2 of that was relevant, the avoidable portion. All righty, so we add that all up, the 48 distractor information. That's not the way you solve for it. That's the most common mistake, taking that total manufacturing costs. So we add it all up. So 16, 16, 32, 8, 40, 42. So the cost to make is 42, not 48. 42. Is that lower? So we're going to make it. So we know the answer to that is make it. All righty. Make it. It's the lower cost. You choose the lower cost. We're looking at the relevant cost to make. Variable costs are relevant. Avoidable fixed costs are relevant. And anytime you see opportunity costs, which didn't apply here. So again, relevant costs, what are we on the lookout for? Variable costs, avoidable or controllable fixed costs, and opportunity costs. Okay, it looks like we have excess capacity. If we made this, we might have to stop making some other product that would cause us to lose revenue. That didn't apply here. But you're always thinking, what are my relevant costs? All variable costs, avoidable fixed costs or controllable fixed costs, and then opportunity costs. Okay, let's go back one at a time. All right, as we read the facts, let's process it. So I'm going to go back to the facts. So we got next. Okay, the aquatic division. I saw the aquatic division uses a joint process. Joint costing, not the cost of a joint. Joint costing, all costs up to the split off point. So when you see joint costs, you don't think of the cost of marijuana. You think about all costs up to the split off point. Up to split off point. I'm going to the Devil game tonight. I'm actually a Ranger fan. They're playing in New Jersey. I like going to the game in New Jersey. There's less people smoking weed than in New York City. As soon as you get off the train in New York City to go to the Ranger, the Knick game, you get high, whether you want to get high or not, because everybody's lighting up. It's unbelievable what's going on in Manhattan. Is that negatively affecting pass rates? Rob, have we studied that? Are the people smoking, is that positively or negatively affecting pass rates for the bar exam, CPA, CFA, medical? What the hell's going on? I don't know. You're like, shut up, stupid. All right, joint costs are all costs up to the split off point. We're going to see there's different ways to allocate joint costs. Okay, they can either be sold at the split off or processed further. We'll process it further so long as the incremental revenue exceeds the incremental costs. And they tell me, folks, our joint costs are $200,000. That has to be allocated to the main products, not the byproducts, just the main products. All right, information overload. Let's stop. Let's go to aquatics. Let's go back. Let's find the aquatics information. There we go, aquatics. So now we can set it up. Joint costs are $200,000, so you don't have to reread, right? Okay. So joint costs, we know $200,000. Okay. So should we process further or not? Let's see. Here's my sales value at the split off. Okay. So one of the questions was sell or process further. All right, so I can sell it. Here's my sales value at split off. Okay, or additional processing costs, also known as your separable costs. Those are the costs after split off. After split off. Okay, and then I'd have my final sales value. You ready? So I want to know, first of all, is my incremental revenue greater than my incremental cost? Well, what's my incremental revenue? Well, for product A, you ready? If you process it further, you have a final sales value of 150 versus a sales value at split off of only 75. So what's your incremental revenue? 75. What are the incremental processing costs? 30. Is 75 greater than 30? Yes, process further. So we're going to process further, process more. How about product B? For product B, I'm going to do it over here. 180 final sales value minus 150, incremental revenue 30 versus what's your incremental cost? Your incremental cost is also 30. So that's a maybe. It all depends. Like, if you're not making any money on it, why would you even consider it? Maybe a very important customer wants product B processed further. And even though you're breaking even, you might consider it to keep that significant customer happy. Okay, so decision making is holistic. Obviously, the numbers, right? The quantitative measures are obviously very important, but qualitative measures need to be considered as well. And keeping your customers happy, goodwill might justify, I don't know, but that's a maybe. I'd have to see other facts. Okay, product C, 60 minus 30, you'd have incremental revenue of 30 versus what's the incremental cost? Incremental cost, 45. No, this would be a loser. No, do not process further. You'd lose money. All right, you'd lose money, so that's a no. Okay. So definitely for product A, maybe for product B, definitely no for product C. Product B would be a maybe, qualitative factors would have to be considered. Okay, now what are the different ways to assign joint costs to your final products? What's the different way of doing it? Well, you're going to do it pro rata, and there's three methodologies. You could do it based upon relative volume, your volume relative to the total, relative sales value, if there's a sales value at split off, if that's known, if there's no sales value at split off, because sometimes the product has no sales value at split off, you got to finish it to have any sales value. Okay, so it's rare that a product actually has a value at split off. Most of the time, you got to finish it to have any kind of sales value. But in this question, we do have sales value at split off. If there's no sales value at split off, then you could use net realizable value and inferred value at split off. Net realizable value, okay, at split off. All right, so net realizable value, if Sales value at split off, unknown or zero. Unknown or zero. Okay, I'm gonna do two of the three. We don't have volume here. I can't do volume, but I'll do sales value at split off. That's actually what they ask for in this question. It's very simple. So if it's sales value at split off, which we have, it's given information, then it's really simple. Product A, you're 75 of the total 255. 75 divided by 255, multiply that by the joint cost of 200,000, 58.82. Product B, you're 150 of the 255. Multiply that by 200,000, 150. You're going to get 117,650. Product C, you're 30 of that 255. Multiply that by the joint cost of 200. You're going to get 2353, I believe, 2353. Now check yourself. If this doesn't add up to your joint cost of 200, you did something wrong. It does. We're in good shape. So that answers one of the questions. What they didn't ask, but I want to review anyway, is relative value. Okay, if it's not given sales value at split off, how do you do net realizable value? Okay, how do you do that net realizable value? What we're going to do is we're going to infer the sales value at split off. These numbers that we did here, so the 150, 150 minus the additional processing costs, 150 minus that 30, you subtract those additional costs, so your final sales value minus your incremental costs to finish it, 30, net realizable value, 120. That's product A. Product B's net realizable value, 180 minus the incremental cost to finish it, also 30, just a coincidence. That's a net realizable value of 150. Product C, final sales value 60 minus the incremental cost of 45, that's 15. That's your net realizable value. Your final sales value minus your incremental cost to finish it. Hey, what's your net realizable value? Okay, so add that all up, 120 plus the 150 plus the 15, 285. So everything would be allocated 120 divided by 285 times the joint cost. 150 divided by 285 times the joint cost. 15 divided by 285 times the joint cost. 84.21 of the joint cost is our allocation. 150 divided by the 285, 105.26. And then 15 divided by 285 times 200, 10.53. Again, check yourself. That better add up to the 200,000 or you did something wrong, and it does. We're in good shape. All righty, so everything is relative to that net realizable value, which is your final sales value minus your incremental cost to finish it. Final sales value minus incremental cost, net realizable value. They asked for this in this particular question, but just want to review the rule in its entirety. All righty, now let's do a bunch of stuff with the first set of given information. That was the frosted product. They asked a bunch of things, variable costing. They asked about absorption costing, all that kind of good stuff. Okay, let's do absorption first. Your GAAP income statement, absorption, your regular external financial reporting, a GAAP income statement. Step number one, you need your product costs. You need your product cost, also known as inventoriable costs, also known as manufacturing costs. These costs do not get expensed until the product is sold, right? Matching principle. So your product costs, your direct materials, plus your direct labor, plus your variable overhead, plus your fixed overhead. There's your total product cost per unit. Total product cost per unit. Write it down. Now you cherry pick the information. My materials cost $3 a unit. We got one piece of the puzzle. Manufacturing conversion costs. I got fixed costs in total of $210. I want that on a per unit basis. I need to know if my fixed manufacturing overhead is 210,000, how many units did I produce? The number of units manufactured. They tell me we manufactured and sold 70,000. So folks, there's no change in ending inventory because everything we manufactured, we sold that period. So we manufactured 70,000 units. So what's my fixed overhead per unit? $3. That's my fixed overhead per unit. Okay. They tell me my variable manufacturing overhead, let's see, variable is $2. Oh, wait a second. Look at this, folks. They call this a conversion cost. That's interesting terminology. What's a conversion cost? That's your direct labor plus all your manufacturing overhead. That's a conversion cost. What's a prime cost? Direct materials plus direct labor, that's a prime cost. Conversion cost of direct labor plus your manufacturing overhead. And there's a fixed component and there's a variable component. Okay, they tell me my manufacturing conversion cost. Well, that's got to be the fixed overhead, 3. And then the direct labor and the variable overhead. The variable, direct labor is a variable cost, just like variable overhead is a variable cost. So the variable conversion costs are $2. So my variable conversion cost, I don't know how to allocate it between direct labor and variable overhead. I just know my variable conversion cost, my fixed conversion cost is 3. My variable conversion cost, your direct labor and the variable overhead only, that's $2. So that's 5. Okay, so the direct labor and the variable overhead combined, that's $5. Okay, so that's $5. So I've got my direct materials. I've got my direct materials. Let's see, $3 a unit. That was given information. Okay. Your direct labor and your variable overhead, I'm sorry, is 2. Your direct labor and your variable overhead, my bad, that's $2. Direct labor and variable overhead, that's $2. The sum of the two, the direct labor plus the variable overhead, that's 2. And then the fixed overhead is 3. That was the 210 divided by the 70. So that's total product cost per unit, $8. So for every unit we sell, that's what we're going to do to get our cost of goods sold. All righty. So it was very interesting the way they gave this as a conversion cost. The fixed conversion cost, that's the fixed manufacturing overhead. Okay. The variable conversion costs, that's your direct labor plus your variable overhead. And the sum of those two, I don't know the allocation, but the variable conversion cost for 2. Fixed conversion cost is equal to the fixed overhead, and that's 3. All righty, so how many units did we sell? So we manufactured and sold. So my sales, 70,000 units. What's my selling price per unit? Times 11. 70,000 times 11, $770,000. That's your sales. Okay, your cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold, 70,000 times your product cost. What was our total product cost? $8 per unit, 560,000. Your gross profit, I should say, and that 8 came from here. Your gross profit, 770 minus 560, gross profit, $210,000. Now I need my selling, general, and administrative. Minus my selling, general, and administrative. There'll be a fixed portion, independent of sales, and a variable portion. SG&A, the fixed portion, $45,000. My variable cost, $1 per unit. 70,000 times the 1, $70,000. So your net income ignoring tax, your net income, or really earnings before tax, ignoring taxes, $95,000. Now, you know what I know? With no change in ending inventory, absorption net income, equals variable direct costing net income. If there's no change in ending inventory, both methods are going to give you the exact same net income. But let's prove that to be true. If I'm taking the exam, I don't have time to prove it. My answer to both of those questions, what's your absorption net income, what's your variable net income, are 95,000. But we're going to prove it to be true. Your product cost, step number one, under variable costing, your product costs are your direct materials plus your direct labor plus your variable overhead only. All right, those are your product costs under variable costing. So my direct materials was 3. My direct labor and my variable overhead, they gave me those together. That was $2. Okay, that was $2. Okay, so my variable product costs, are 5, less than what it is under GAAP, 8. Okay, that's your product cost under variable costing. All right, so now let's do it. Variable costing, sales, 70,000 units at $11, no change, $770,000, that's your sales. Now you subtract all variable costs. So you've got your direct materials, 70,000 times 3. You've got your variable conversion costs, 70,000 times 2. That was your direct labor and your variable overhead. So that's 210,000. That's 140,000. And now your variable SG&A, 70,000 times 1, 70,000. This is a different subtotal. This we call contribution margin. Your contribution margin, 770 minus your direct materials, minus your direct labor and variable overhead, minus your variable SG&A. Your contribution margin, I have $350,000 to contribute towards my fixed costs. My contribution margin ratio, my contribution margin as a percentage of sales, 350 divided by 770, 45.45%. If you took your total fixed costs and you divided that by 45.45%, your contribution margin ratio, that tells you what your break-even sales are in dollars, not units, in sales dollars. Okay, we don't have to do that here, but if they asked us for it, we got it. That's your contribution margin ratio. That gets you your break-even in sales dollars, okay, if we put total fixed cost there. Okay, now we're going to subtract out our fixed.
Hey, Pete.
Yes, sir.
I'm watching the time. We're getting close to the end.
No. 2 is a suggested ending time, Rob. Everyone's got to relax. That's a suggested ending time.
We have a couple more questions we want to talk about.
Oh, yeah. As soon as I'm done with this, Rob. As soon as I'm done.
Okay.
Hang in there.
All right.
If anybody's got to go, you got to go. So all the extra UWorld people that are hanging on, thank you so much for joining us. There's no reason for you to stay unless you want. Paul, you got to stay. Rob, you got to stay. And then attendee. Yeah. No. So, yeah, everybody's got to relax.
Give everybody what we were advertising. So that's all good.
Fixed SG&A, 45,000. All right. So all your fixed costs, the 210 plus the 45, folks, your net income, same result, different format, 95,000. There's your net income, 95,000. Okay, 95,000, that's your net income. Got it? With no change in ending inventory, you could have predicted your net income was going to be the same. All right. Now, when would your when would your net income be different? Variable costing versus absorption, dependent upon your fixed overhead per unit. What was our fixed overhead per unit? $3. If you take your change in inventory and you multiply that by your fixed overhead per unit, 3, that'll get you the difference in net income under those different methods. Okay, that would be your difference in net income. All righty, so let's say we produce 70,000 units. Let's say we manufacture 70,000 greater than what we sold. Let's say we sold 50,000 units. What would be the change in our ending inventory? Plus 20,000. You take that change in ending inventory, multiply by the fixed overhead per unit, 3. What would be the difference in net income? 60,000. Who would have the higher net income, absorption or variable costing? If ending inventory goes up, if your ending inventory goes up, just think about it. Under absorption, the fixed overhead for these 20,000 units that were not sold, that's sitting on the balance sheet in ending inventory. That cost is not expensed unless the product is sold. So if inventory goes up, absorption is going to have the higher net income because it'll have the lower cost expense. The 20,000 units in ending inventory, that cost is not expense. Okay, hang in there. We're almost there. Don't rush me, man. Don't rush me. What is this, Mount Rushmore? We're rushing me over here. All right. The produce division. You ready? What they specifically asked is for fresh, keep it or drop it. We said if you drop, there's a cost benefit. If you drop it, if you eliminate it, what's the benefit? The saved fixed costs. Only those that are avoidable are relevant, the saved fixed cost. The cost of dropping it, you're going to lose your contribution margin in dollars. Whatever that contribution margin is, you're going to lose that. All right, so now it's a piece of cake. If we drop it, what's the cost? The cost is $1,500. You're going to lose this contribution margin. There's your cost. Okay, you're going to lose $1,500. It's contributing towards the coverage of fixed costs. Now, if we drop it, how much of my fixed costs are avoidable? I don't want total fixed costs. I want the avoidable fixed costs. So the total is irrelevant, folks. That's irrelevant. That's distractor information. I don't want the total. I want the avoidable fixed cost. And what's the avoidable fixed cost? 300. So folks, if you're going to save 300, but you're going to lose 1,500, what are we going to do? Keep it. Do not drop it. You'll save 300, but you're going to lose 1,500. Your net income would go down by 1,200 if you drop it. So keep it in the short term. Keep it in short term. Remember, all costs become variable cost in the long term. So folks, maybe that fixed cost, maybe 300 is avoided, maybe the other 1,500 is the rent, or we got a 10-year lease. Well, 10 years from now, when the lease expires, then you'll drop it. But in the short term, we're going to keep it. Okay, so we're going to keep it. All right, let's see. Answered that. I answered that. Let's see. I think I answered them all. I think I got all this stuff done. Yes, we got almost all this done. The other piece of the puzzle was no big deal. So yeah, all right. So I don't want anyone to stab me. Somebody's got. So I know now, Rob. Am I wrong? Are people anxious to get to the library and review? Is that why we're rushing? Because they want to go review this in the library? Is that why, Rob?
I have so many comments here where they want the library is the first word I see. No, not at all. Actually, what I've got here is comments that are thanking you for all of this great information.
No, thank you until you pass. Save the thank you until you pass, folks. And look, I'm passionate. Rob's passionate. Dave, all the instructors on here. Roger, first of all, Roger's the best in the business. All due respect to Dave, myself, and the others on it. Roger's the best in the business. We love what we do. So sincerely, if you take it, you pass it, we want to hear from you. If you don't, we want to know why and help you put together a plan. The vast majority of CPAs do not pass all 4 parts on the first attempt. It's not lack of ability. It's mostly lack of time, but we'll help you put together a better study plan the second time around, right? The insanity is when you do the same thing over and over and then you expect a different result. So look, if you failed the first time around, contact us. We'll help you put together a plan. But thank you for saying thank you. But when you pass, then you let me know. What else you got, Rob?
So I was going to give Puskar a chance to talk about IT for a moment because we've got several people asking about IT things. So
absolutely.
Puskar, you're on if you have a moment.
Thank you, Rob. Hi, everybody.
Let me say a
Can
little
everybody
bit
hear
about
me?
Puskar's background. Puskar has worked in audit, in IT audit. He was at EY. He's a great, knowledgeable person about these things. So we're happy to have him with us. Thank you, Puskar.
Thank you, Rob. Like Rob said, I have over 12 years of IT audit experience in working on SOX IT audit and SOC report audits. Majority of that experience is at Ernst & Young, EY. I see a lot of our students are curious about the IT questions. What I want to say is to think about IT like you think about any other process or objective. Now remember, the AI CPA blueprint is laid out in a way that allows you to think about IT in the big picture first, then in the granular details. Read those blueprints carefully, and if you don't understand certain materials, then read the content in our books or watch our videos. Then practice our questions and don't worry about getting them wrong. In fact, I encourage you to get them wrong so you can read our carefully crafted explanation, which is where you will get full depth understanding of the subject matter. I really hope it helps, and I wish you good luck in your BEC exam.
Thank
Rob,
you
that's
so
all I got, unless there are any more questions.
And I had to get myself unmuted so I could talk some more. Also, there's a question, Pete, for you about the written communications questions in BEC. They're asking for advice on how to approach that and what you would tell them about how to do those things.
Yeah, so just understand the original intent with the written communication was that kind of coincided when the CPA exam went international. We have many candidates now sitting from Asia, Europe, the Middle East, where English is not their first language. So the AICPA, NASBA felt, and the states felt it's extremely important if you're going to give somebody the US CPA. Not only do they have to have the technical understanding, but they've got to be able to communicate verbally, but we're going to test in writing, right? So it was originally designed just to make sure grammatically, like they can write a memo to a partner. It might be a client. It could be a manager. It could be a subordinate, whoever, so that you can clearly, state what the issue is. Hey, here's the rule. Here's my analysis. State your conclusion, that you could write professionally a memo. It's machine graded. It's not even really graded for content. You just can't write about, how the Yankees are doing, which is not good. You can't write about that. It's got to be on topic. But they're not grading it. They're not going to ask you, hey, can you list the, what are the relevant costs? List them. It's not about that. It's to make sure that for our English is a second language, that they could communicate. So look, if English is your first language and you're accustomed to writing essays in English, for the most part, just look at our detailed explanatory answers. It's not that hard to max out on those points. If English is your first language. Now, it's totally different for our candidates in Japan, all over China, all over the Middle East and Europe, where they actually have to practice this. For most of you, you might want to practice writing out one, but they want to make sure, no TikTok language, no texting, I was going to say SOS. I don't know. Shaking my head, what is that? SMH and no LOLs, none of that crap, all right? That you write professionally. Read through our detailed explanatory answers. You're going to be fine. That's what that's about. Just remember this, folks. One of those written communications does not count towards your score. You don't know which one it is, so do not over-allocate too much time for the written communication. One of your problems, task-based simulation problems, will not count towards your score. 20% of your multiple choice don't count towards your score. So if you remember nothing else from today, when in doubt, you move on, folks. God forbid you spin your wheels unnecessarily on a question and then it doesn't count towards your score. This is what our practice exams at UWorld are all about, yes, reviewing and applying the content, but it's actually more important than that. It's about allocating your time between the two testlets, multiple choice. You've got your two testlets on the task-based simulations, the problem, your last testlet on the written communication, so that you could properly allocate that 4 hours so that you're not rushing and running out of time, okay? With the task-based simulations, when you open up that testlet, do the problems in the order that you're most comfortable with. Easiest one first. When you open up that testlet, if the first problem in there is not your strongest topic, do that one second, because if you're going to rush and run out of time, let's rush and run out of time on things you weren't going to do well in anyway. And that includes the multiple choice as well. And you got to build up that mental endurance. You know how I feel about this 4-hour exam, man. Everybody, wants short lectures. I get it. A back and forth approach is wonderful. But I didn't take a break today on purpose. You know, you've got 4 hours. They give you one, 15-minute break. But look, other than that, you got to be able to sit down and concentrate without picking up this damn phone and looking at things and being distracted. How often do you sit down 4 hours uninterrupted? That's a skill unto itself. You can't get something wrong because you're mentally fatigued, okay? And that's what our practice exams are about. I want you sitting there. They think I'm nuts for sitting here 3 hours uninterrupted. But this is how you build that mental endurance, okay? You get used to it. I'm used to it. I'm just used to it. It's what I do. So it's second nature to me. This needs to be second nature to you. What else we got, Rob Bass?
That's great. Thank you. Let's see. Another question on, several people were saying that they are going to be taking BEC in the next few days. Do you have any advice for them when they're getting, right down to the wire, and how to make sure they have it all under control when they go in to take the exam?
Everything is dictated, as was mentioned earlier. Content specification outline gives you topic weights. You allocate your remaining study time, econ, corporate governance, IT, corporate finance, the financial math, all by topic weights. That's number one. Number two, it's done. What you're good at, you become great at. If you said to me, Pete, I don't understand variable costing, you ain't going to learn it now. Let it go. Your remaining few days up until the exam, you're focusing in on what you're good at, you're going to be great at. Don't let your weaknesses monopolize your time so that you're not great in anything. It's time to let go. Now, not 10 topics, but a topic or two, that's fine. If there's a topic or two you're not that good at, forget it. Let it go. It's going to be a point or two, whatever. But don't let that monopolize your time, okay? You got to focus in on the core concepts. You've seen us emphasize it. It's emphasized in the questions, the multiple choice task-based. You know what's likely to be tested, what you're good at, become great at.
And I think that's the end of all the questions. They were all kind of in those groupings that I already gave you. So I think we're good.
Hey, so Paul, I want to invite you back real quick. I think you wanted to go over real quick just this, and then contacting us and also the 2024 course. So yeah, our all new 2024 course, guys, we're doing this to earn your business, man. And you know what? The firms, the world, it's a whole new world, baby. The firms are coming to you world. They know what we're doing. They know the talent they've putting together. You saw that. It's a combination of you world, Roger, Wiley, myself. So deals are being cut with firms on a daily basis. So if we didn't have a firm deal before, we're going to have a firm deal. If there's not a firm deal yet, we'd love for you to help us put that together. It just gets all of you a better price. Do not choose because someone says, oh, I took. What they took a year ago is totally different than what's going on today. I'm at UWorld now. Wiley's at UWorld now. This team of talent is all together. It's a brand new day, baby. That's why Deloitte had us in, EY, all these different firms are contacting us. If you want us to do in-house at your firm, let's set it up. Let's go. Sorry, Paul.
No, that's perfect. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we got you.
Hey, I wanted to let you guys know, I was talking to my colleagues. I think this is like free gold, right? This is so powerful and impactful. Peter, thanks so much. It's amazing. And I think hopefully you guys can see the answers, questions that were in there, task-based simulations, multiple, those are ours, okay? Those are UWorld. The quality is amazing. The answer responses, Peter's amazing. When you combine our course content and our expert lectures, it's fantastic. I say give us a chance. We're going to follow up with you afterwards. We're going to give you an amazing deal. I just want to let you guys know, first off, we're much more affordable than the leading competitor out there. And on top of that, we'll even give you a better deal if you want to just try the BEC alone. But besides that, if you want to, our new 2024 product just got launched. I think it's even better than our current, CPA exam. And like what Peter was saying, let HR know, let the folks know that how you really like this training and you want to take advantage of this, because we can make a bigger impact at your firm or your company. So when we follow up with you, let us know how we could help you. If it's just BEC, if it's audit, if it's 2024 stuff, we're going to be able to work with you and help you guys out. Just give us
and
the
we're on
opportunity.
tour. Not only myself, but Roger as well, and some of the other instructors you met. So if you want us in-house at your firm, we're happy to do it. It's got to be critical mass. If it's a one-person firm, I'm sorry, but we'll work with you online. And we'll do a lot of live online as well. But if you want us to come in and do an in-house webinar at your firm, whether it's myself, Roger, Dave, or any other people you saw here today, or others as well, we are happy to do it from your office. That's the level of customer service we're bringing to the table.
Yes, And we're scheduling that stuff now. So when we follow up with you, let us know. Hey, we'd love to have him come in at our firm, whatever the case may be, and we will follow up, make that happen for you guys. Rob, you got anything else you want to follow up with?
Good. We're getting a lot of comments from people who really appreciate everything that you're doing, Pete, and we're as the guys have said, we're very excited about our new 2024 course that just went live. We put a lot of effort into making it specific for 2024. We threw out the old and started over, actually, and built everything around the AICPA blueprint. And so what we have is very, very well crafted for what you need for 2024.
Tell him, Rob, who's better than us?
No one.
There you go. It's nobody, but I'll go with
Nobody.
Come on, Rob. Where's your New York? Nobody. Let's go.
Takes me back to my Jersey days, which were a while ago.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much on behalf of every one of you. Where we've sincerely, I know this is free monetarily, not free in terms of your time. I hope we use your time wisely today. We wish you guys the best. I hope we're earning your business for you, your firm, your friends, your colleagues. So we'll see you guys in the course, and keep in touch.